Hello, guys. Today's group of podcast will be a little bit different than normal. The following is actually an impromptu conversation I had with popular streamer and YouTuber Awkward, who recently caused a lot of controversy with a tweet of his talking about how he felt that crying was not something that people should do and showed a lack of emotional control. It was in reply to one of my tweets, so I asked him on a call to see if we could have this discussion together because I truly do believe that everyone, and men in particular, as I was talking about originally in the tweet, should feel the ability to cry because it is a healthy thing to do and no one should be shamed for doing it. So I'll explain more of the context as the conversation starts, but I hope you guys enjoy this very different conversation that has nothing to do with Overwatch.
100%, yeah. I just want to, before we begin, I would like to address something really quick. Just because I disagree with you on a point doesn't mean that I don't like you, that I hate you, that I don't consider you a friend. And I use Twitter, now called X, to it's probably not the best place, but discussing meaningful conversation. I don't follow people that I only agree with because that would be an echo chamber. That would be, surrounding myself with yes men. I like to, hear other opinions because that's, I believe, how we grow as people. That's how we grow as a society as well.
I agree 100%. And again, I think maybe people who don't know will think that I've kind of asked you here because I hate you or anything, or that I'm trying to tear you down. That's not it at all. I consider Awkward my friend. I think he's a really swell guy, and I think that it's important to have these discussions with your friends if you have a stance where you kind of feel like because to our cards on the table, I DM'd Awkward after the tweet and I said, yo man, I don't agree with what you said, and I think it's kind of like hurtful for you and hurtful for other people. So that's why we're having this discussion, because Awkward has his POV, I have my POV, and hopefully we can come to at least an understanding of where each other are coming from, if not an agreement on a stance. So okay, so with that, Awkward, I'll just set the scene for anyone who's like listening and doesn't have Twitter/X, which is honestly a good thing, smart thing. So I made a video a week or two ago now about, it was an analysis of Hollywood versus anime, and I called it Grown Men Should Cry Like Anime Boys. And essentially it's a comparison of masculinity in Hollywood films versus anime. And my major point was essentially that I respect how anime gives room for young men and its protagonists to cry very openly and frequently, and how I kind of posited this as a positive thing for men and representations for men. And also contrasted it to how in Hollywood men are often angry lone wolves. They don't express their emotions very well. So I made that video and I made a tweet, and then Awkward saw the video presumably, or at least saw the tweet, and replied, and he said, crying is tied to lack of emotional control. Saying it's okay to cry is the same as saying it's okay to punch someone in the face when you are angry, in my opinion. I would rather control my emotions in a way that they could be used to fuel productive things like working out. Before I say anything, Awkward, do you want to just maybe elaborate your stance and give me a bit more, like, obviously Twitter and tweets are not always easy to explain your full POV. So do you want to just give me your POV of like what you saw and what you disagree with from what I said?
100%. I just saw beforehand, somebody in your chat says that, I always speak about working out and stuff like that. I use this analogy because it's the easiest to understand. I just say the gym because it's easier. I'm not going to say go bouldering or rock climbing. It's not relatable. So I just use that as an analogy. But what I meant by that, right, is that emotions, even though they're on a spectrum, they're all rooted into an emotion. A person that cries a lot, for example, is sad a lot, he's also prone to be happy a lot or angry a lot. Even it's not that you are only sad or only angry, but if you can't control your emotions, as I said, they're all on a spectrum, and you're as likely to be angry as much as you're likely to be sad if you cannot control those emotions. Now, I never claim that men or people should not have emotions. I think that it's quite clear when somebody is sad or somebody is happy. We have indicators. We smile when we're happy. We have a frowny face when we're sad. We cry sometimes when we're sad, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now,
yeah.
A lot of people were mentioning that I kind of missed the whole point. They're like, how are you comparing crying to punching somebody in the face? That's not even the point, right? I'm not comparing what's worse. Obviously, punching someone in the face is worse than crying, 100%. But it's not what I meant with the tweet. It's like kind of flew over people's head. But that is Twitter. But main point is fly over people's head. But that's I expected it. It's not that I'm sitting here oblivious to the fact of what's going to happen with what I tweet. So, as I said, all emotions are on a spectrum. If you are lacking emotional control and you're crying about a lot of things, you're very likely to be angry with a lot of things. And if you enable somebody to be mad at something, you're potentially enable him to be angry at things and act on those emotions. Saying it's okay to cry, it's saying it's okay that you're mad. It's okay that you are punching a hole in the wall. Let's destroy the analogy of I don't want to punch anybody. Punch the wall. I don't think it's okay to punch a wall. I don't think it's okay to scream when you're angry. Just how I don't think, by the way, if we kind of keep it in Overwatch, right?
Mm-hmm.
People who are emotional, what do? They throw games, they flame other people, right? It's an emotional response. They get angry so much they have to throw the game. They have to jump off the map. They have to flame everybody around them.
Yeah, yeah. I think so. So again, to summarize, we're fixating on the crying aspect, but there's a lot of things to there's a lot of nuance here that we'll get into every singular aspect of it, just so that we can really break down the POV.
Yes.
But what I'm getting most is your idea that you feel somehow the crying is like an extreme emotion. Is that correct? Like you feel like it's a almost uncontrolled emotion.
No, it's not what I'm saying. It's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
I'm saying that if you enable yourself to cry, it goes down a very slippery slope that you
Mm-hmm.
will cry at things that shouldn't be crying on. You know who cries a lot, or what? Children, they cry a lot. How they get angry a lot. That's why we have the phrase "you're acting like a child." What does a
Right.
child do? He is acting on his emotions. Even though nothing happened, he will cry. Even nothing happened, he will throw a tantrum. And that's how we don't expect adult to act, because again, it's a slippery slope. If you enable yourself to get very angry and act upon that anger, you will see a very violent society, especially from men. I don't know how people got the fact that it's kind of that I didn't even mention men or women, but the reason why it's more dangerous for men to be angry because of the violent aspect. I think we're more capable of violence than women, right?
Right.
So that is why it's very important for us as men to control our anger. Just how it is important for us. It's not control our anger, it's control our emotions. It's not that you
Right.
can control your anger and you cannot control your sadness. It's the same. As even though it's a spectrum, it's the same thing. You control your emotions. It's not that you can control one better than the other. Just control all of them, or none.
Yeah. I mean, I think what the part I kind of want to get at and disagree with is that like do you think laughing is a emotion that would lead to a negative path? Like if you laughed, would you find that a potential gateway to violence?
Specifically, positive emotions, they don't necessarily lead the gateway to violence. But I think that also laughing at every single thing is kind of ridiculous. I think that it's not. If you cannot hold your laugh at a funeral, I think that is also
True,
bad.
but yeah, I mean, I talked about that example too because when I made this tweet, someone said, "Oh well, crying within context. You don't want. There's sometimes you don't want to cry." And I don't think there's anyone who would disagree with that sentiment because I don't think anyone's advocating that you should be going around crying all the time. Like if you're crying literally all the time, something is wrong. Like crying is merely an indicator of a deeper consequence or a deeper emotion, right? The reason I
Mhm.
brought up laughter is because to me, like laughter, you might put on the same spectrum. And again, disagree with me if you, or correct me if you disagree, but it's kind of in that same feeling of, oh, I'm feeling something and this is how I express it. I laugh, right? And some people laugh more than others. Like I'm not someone who laughs very easily, for example, but my friend Boger, your friend Boger as well, like he laughs a lot. He's a really jolly guy. I wouldn't view that as any sort of lack of control. It's simply an expression of a feeling. And I would put crying in the same spectrum. It's simply the expression of an emotion. And obviously, there are contexts where it's more welcome than others. But ultimately, expressing yourself in a way that's non destructive is healthy, right? So, again, violence, we both agree, is kind of destructive, right? It's like punching something or anything like that is a destructive emotion. I don't view crying as a destructive emotion. It's simply an expression of many feelings. And again, crying can not just be from sadness. It can be relief. It can be joy. It can be many things, right? It can be empathy. You can cry out of empathy. So to me, the crying part is not in any way a lack of control. So I'm curious as to whether you disagree with anything I've said there.
Well, first of all, I would like to touch upon the subject where laughter and crying. I mean, even though they're both on the spectrum of emotions, we are more welcome. We're more welcome to positive emotions because it makes people around us feel better, feel healthier, feel uh, welcomed. But the crying and anger, emotions like that, that are more associated with negative things, like, crying we mostly associate with sadness. I agree with you on the joy or gratitude, but I also wanted to give a fair example that, I retweeted. I saw J3 video or the stream where he gave his father, he paid all of his debt,
Sure.
and his father kind of started getting emotional and started tearing up a bit, right?
Sure.
And it's not that he's crying because he's sad. He showed gratitude, even
Right.
though gratitude is an emotion, but we don't exactly express it. We don't know how to express as humans. There's no expression of gratitude. We usually cry when we're grateful for something. Usually, we get very
Right.
emotional. But even then, you could see that he was kind of controlling it in a way that it shows his son that he's very grateful, but he was not very out of control, which is kind of whopping all over the monitor or everything like that. It's
Well,
nothing extreme.
well, here's my question to you then. If he had cried and bawled his eyes out, would you have seen it as a negative thing? Would you have viewed him a little bit like, would you have lost respect for him had he bawled his eyes out when his son paid off his life's debts, which is, a huge thing?
I think that if I were to look at it from just, I'm just observing, it wouldn't bother me as much. But I think somewhere subconsciously, I would view a person that cannot control his emotions. What if he cannot control his emotions when he's happy? What happens when he's sad? What happens when he's angry? I understand that he was very happy, right? And I think that being happy as well should not take it to an extreme, because again, that leads down to a very slippery slope. People who want to be happy all the time, what do? They go to a party, drink alcohol. And when I say slippery slope, I think that sometimes saying it's okay to cry at things without giving proper context, right? I'm not saying that, if God forbid, let's say your father just died, right? Yeah, if you tear up, it's not that big of a deal, right? But if you really start crying and you cannot hold it, and it's just getting out of control, I think the people around you, they're not gonna say anything, but somewhere subconsciously it's like, wow, I mean,
So,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm really grateful for you sharing yourself. And the reason I'm asking questions is I really want to understand where you're coming from, right? I think what you're putting there is your own personal POV on someone else, because as we've established, there crying is not necessarily was a negative emotion, right? You've kind of brought up the example of when, for those who don't know, chat or anyone watching, J3 recently is also a great content creator, recently paid off his father's debts, and there's a video of his father crying basically when his son hands him the paper that's kind of tells him that. So, I know you've associated with crying as a negative emotion, but quite clearly there it is a positive emotion. There's nothing there that's bad. His father is crying, or J3's father is crying because he's happy. He's happy and he's proud, presumably, of his son, and as you mentioned, gratitude. So nowhere in there is there any negative emotions. And again, I would liken it to, had J3 told a really funny joke and his father just started crying or laughing really hard, I don't think you'd view that as something to be skeptical of, right? You wouldn't be like, oh well, this guy has a lack of control of his emotions. What's he gonna do next? Is that fair?
Yeah, you're correct. But I explained this before. I explained this, that there are more emotions that are more welcome, right? I don't think you should laugh a lot uncontrollably. As I said, it's not okay to be at
No,
a funeral
yeah.
and just keep
Again,
laughing.
yeah. But we don't need to bring the example of a funeral, because we've contextualized the example, right? We've
I
contextualized the
know.
example in it's this: your son has given you your life's debts erased. If he had laughed as well because he was so happy, that would have
Yeah.
been okay, right?
Yes, I'm saying that it's okay until a certain point, and I think the threshold for positive emotions are a little bit higher than negative emotions, because negative emotions are not only destructive to self, but also destructive to other people, and that's why they're frowned upon. When you see somebody's crying, you're not necessarily that you're afraid that he's gonna do something to you, but you're afraid that he's gonna do something to himself, right? And when you see somebody's angry, you're not afraid that he's gonna do something to himself. You're afraid that he's gonna do something to other people. So we're more, I think, evolutionary. It's more frowned upon to kind of keep those negative emotions at bay and more welcome the positive ones. It's okay to laugh a little bit more than you would be angry, but I don't think you should laugh too much to the point that might become disrespectful to other people. You might seem to look goofy to other people.
Well,
And
yeah. Go ahead. Finish your thought. Finish your point. I don't want to interrupt you.
I said that it's as I said, it's just even though they're on a spectrum, there are emotions that are more welcome. And again, if you enable one thing too much, like if you tell somebody that it's okay to laugh, right, and then he starts laughing at everything, I mean, you can kind of blame people for giving that advice that it's okay to laugh. How, saying it's okay to cry, you're enabling a feeling that should be a little bit more controlled. But when you say it's okay to cry, yeah, sure. Will you blame somebody if he would cry in a very, very, very like down, bad moment in his life? No. But once you enable that feeling, enable that thought, it's okay to do so. All of a sudden, he doesn't only cry when it's bad. It's like he cries when the milk is spilled, and now he becomes and basically he's acting like a child. That we as people, I think universally we can agree, nobody likes people that act like children when they're grown up adults.
Sure. I think there's a lot of things to unpack there. I think that firstly, I think the example you're drawing, that like if you tell someone it's okay to cry, then they'll start crying everywhere, is not. I don't think it's one that you actually would agree with yourself, because it's kind of like if you take your approach to coaching Overwatch, for example, right? If you told someone, hey, it's okay to do damage, I don't think you would be happy or you would feel like it's fair if that person was like, I'm literally never going to heal as a support because Awkward told me it's okay to do damage. You would say that's misrepresented. That's not what I said. When I said it's okay to do damage, there are contexts around which it's okay to do this, and I'm going to explain those contexts to you. Presumably, human beings need less context as to when emotions are good and bad, but if you tell someone it's okay to cry or okay to laugh, I'm sure they can understand and work out the context for themselves, where it's appropriate, where it's not appropriate. I also think that it's interesting, it's just I think the core theme that I'm getting is just your feeling of unregulated emotion. That's kind of what really you're not happy with. I think you're seemingly, again, correct at any point, correct me if I'm wrong, I'd like to feed back so that I know I understand what you said, right? That's why I'm trying to like summarize your stance so that I am confident that I know what you're feeling. So it sounds like you're against unregulated emotions where you're like, oh, this person is not in control of their feelings. Is that fair?
Yes, but I'm mostly against giving general advice that it's okay to act on your emotions, because as I said, it can lead down to a slippery slope. And I disagree that people can contextualize on when they should do it and when they shouldn't. I mean, even if you compare my coaching and saying to do damage, right, as an analogy, I don't think it's the best analogy, but we can go with that, right?
Okay.
When somebody does damage and he tries it, first of all, he cannot know the context of when to do it and when not. He actually fails miserably a lot of the times. Now, failing in Overwatch is not a big deal, but if you fail to contextualize when you should cry or when you should be angry, I think that it's a very, very, very dangerous place to be in for you and for other people as well, right? I think that it's unfair to say, unfair and unjust to say, in general, it's okay to cry, because what you're basically hinting at, it's okay to act on your emotions. And a lot of the comments, by the way, under that tweet said, no, it's okay to act on your emotions. So, okay, next time that I'm gonna be angry, I'm gonna grab the AK, walk outside, and start, spraying people. I don't think, and that's
But
exactly what
these
acting on emotions are.
but these are like we're taking it to the extreme now. Like, there's, again, we've talked about that there's things to do that are okay, there's things to do that are not okay. If you're angry and let's say you feel the need to scream and you're in your room, that's okay potentially, right?
Yeah.
But and crying doesn't mean you're going to pull the AK out and start spraying people. Like, if you cry, that's that. So at this point I've refrained from talking too much about studies and like biological effects, because I think that it's not necessarily going to help us get to an impasse. But studies have shown that like crying releases it's actually a way of de-stressing. It's actually a way of releasing emotions so that you don't essentially explode in a manner that you're suggesting. So I feel like we're drawing an extreme example to say that if you do this thing, you will automatically do this thing, right? I think I disagree with that.
You're saying it's extreme, but how does an extreme happen? It's not like one day somebody decides I just wanna, it's built up gradually. When you see a kid, for example, and he starts punching people at the kindergarten, you would assume that if he continues down that path, it's gonna be very extreme. People that are murderers, for example, it's not that they were born murderers. I think that through growing up, they were enabled to do violent things, and he slowly, gradually climbed up the ladder where it became extreme at one point. Nobody wakes up extreme.
But do you have like, so where is your feeling that crying will lead to, let's say a sort of degeneration of society almost? Where's that feeling come from? Like, where have you seen examples of men who cry and then do really silly or bad things? Like, where's this come from?
100%. I mean, some people think that I'm kind of, I mean, oh, he never struggled. He doesn't know. I'm not claiming that I was born some macho man. I actually made very big progress in my own personality. I used to be the guy that cried at everything. I used to be the guy that just said, oh, no, it's too much. And I was at very low points in my life through enabling these feelings. And usually, by the way, when you have a mother and a father and they're both at a household, the mother kind of enables those because she says it's okay to cry, it's fine, let out your anger, blah blah blah. But your father is usually the one, yeah, you have to compose yourself, be more controlled. And I was like more growing up, I was kind of more attached to my mother, but growing up I started getting more understanding of my father's point of view. And I'll tell you from my own experience that controlling my emotions, both happy and sad, led me to a much, much better life overall in all aspects. More disciplined, more respected, more taking care of myself and other people. I think that the fact that I don't cry at everything, as much as I'm not laughing at everything, and I'm not happy at everything, and I'm not using every opportunity to be happy, or not, acting on anger. It leads other people, when they have a problem, they approach me. They say, Danny, like, okay, I have this problem. What is the solution? But let's be honest with ourselves here, right? If you had a friend who constantly cried at everything, I think that you would lose respect. Or, even if you don't lose respect for him, when you have a problem, you're much less likely to approach him for a solution. You would go to the most stoic figure that you know. Usually it's the father of the family, usually, right? Usually when there's a problem, who do we go for? To the father, right? Because he's the stoic guy. He usually has solutions to our problems, much less than our mother, because our mother is more likely to act on her emotions. I don't want to get into this whole men against women emotion. It doesn't matter. It's not even gender specific, because
Right.
it doesn't. I think that having lack of emotional control on both, like in women and men, is bad overall. It's really bad.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot there again. I think this is where difference of context, difference of upbringing will always come into play. I don't know if everyone would agree. Certainly, I don't agree that necessarily we would default to the father figure, nor that, for example, my father is the more emotional one in my family. So my father is much more expressive of his emotions than my mother. My mother tends to very rarely give praise or express love. My father is very effusive. He's always, expressing himself all the time, always saying how much he loves me, he's proud of me. So I don't think, firstly, I necessarily agree that that's how it is. But I also think that this idea that if your friend cried, you would lose respect for them, I personally disagree. And I kind of wanted to say this earlier as well, is that, you said you kind of view, you would kind of potentially lose respect for someone who you saw crying. I wouldn't do so. And I think, again, to go back to like studies and stuff, crying is a good way of bonding, right? I'm sure you understand the premise, at least, or potentially agree with the premise that going through hardship with someone strengthens your bond with them, right? Like when you go through difficult things with someone, you feel a bit closer to them. And the ability to express yourself, I think it's about honesty, right? It's about expressing yourself honestly. I think the people I trust most in my life are people who I feel comfortable expressing myself honestly with. If I felt sad and I wanted to cry, I would want to cry in front of my friends who I trust, that respect me, love me, and will allow me to express myself in any way that I feel is appropriate at that time. I would hate to feel that my friends would not let me express my own organic emotions out of fear of judging me for it, right? Like you're my friend and I respect you, and if I was to express something to you, I would feel very sad to know that you would judge me for it, or that you would think me less. Like, I would want you to express yourself completely to me and other of your friends, right? So like, I disagree with your premise that you should, like, that your friends would judge you, or that you would only go to the person who is the most stoic. Again, my best friend, I've seen her cry. She's very honest with her emotions, and I would still very happily go to her, because I respect her, and I believe in her honesty.
Oh, okay. So what you said, your father figure is the more emotional in the family. Exceptions don't disprove the rule. Usually, the fathers of the household are the more stoic ones. In general, I think we can all agree on that. You know, and just because there are exceptions, it doesn't disprove the rule. How
Okay.
there's I mean, I didn't say that emotions don't exist. Like
Right.
emotions exist, but why, when somebody is sad, right? The default emotion is to cry. If my friend is sad, he can come to me and say, "I'm sad." He doesn't have to cry. He said, "I'm sad," or "I'm pissed." When he comes to me and says, "I'm pissed," let's go for a run. Cool. Let's go for a workout. I'm not saying, "Okay, you're angry. Punch me in the face, brother." No, that's no, or just how he would be sad. I wouldn't tell him, "Oh, okay, it's okay, bro. Let's just cry, cry." No, let's do something to direct that energy of sadness to something that is gonna make you feel better. And now you're saying that there's studies that make you feel better, evolutionary studies or scientific study, whatever, that make that it just the stress is released from you when you're crying. But at the end of the day, it's a band-aid solution. And I'm gonna make an analogy, and I hope this is okay to talk about. But let's say I think that's watching pornography, for example, right? And masturbation. I think that it's also, I mean, you can do it. It's biological. You can do it, and there are studies who show that it's good to release stress. But what ends up happening again? It's a slippery slope where all of a sudden you become addicted to it, just how you would be addicted to alcohol. Your friend usually says, "I just one drink." It all starts with one drink. It all starts with one dose. It all starts with one everything. It starts slow and it builds up to an addiction. How crying? I'm not saying that I mean there's an addiction to crying, but I think that you can default to crying when things go bad. And if you cry when things go bad, it's going to be very hard for you to come with logical and practical solutions to your problems. And that's why people end up harming themselves at the end of the day, because they just cannot, they don't think, what is the logical solution that I can stop being sad anymore or stop being angry anymore? And when I'm angry, I
Right.
go to the gym, anger goes away. When I'm sad, okay, let me buy my mom some flowers. She'll be happy. I'll be happy. Boom. Sadness goes away for the day. And if it doesn't, I promise you, I wake up tomorrow and I do something else. And the sadness eventually, after many tries, it goes away. And if it doesn't go away, I have to really ask myself logically, okay, I've been sad for a week. Is there, I mean, it didn't just fall from the sky. I'm not just sad randomly for a week, right? I didn't walk down the street, somebody was sad, it was contagious. I was just,
I
there's
think
something in my life that makes me sad.
I think from my POV, I actually think you have it backwards. You said that like crying is like the band-aid solution to the problem, and like let's go work out or let's go buy my mother flowers is the potential real solution. I think actually it's the other way around. I think to understand why you're like crying is simply symptomatic. Oh, again, we have said that it's multiple emotions, right? It can be gratitude, it can be happiness, but let's stick for crying as a method of sadness, right? Because I think that's where perhaps the most disagreement comes from, right?
Yeah.
So if you're crying because you're sad, the crying is merely an indicator of the sadness, which is also just an indicator of something that's potentially upsetting you, right? Something in your life that's potentially upsetting you. If you're sad and you then go to the gym, I mean, going to the gym releases a lot of chemicals, well, like, endorphins that make you feel good, right? But that doesn't change why you were sad. It doesn't change the cause of what made you sad in the first place. The only way to actually fix that is to understand yourself and your emotions. I think I agree with you that having an understanding and controlling of your emotions is good, but that doesn't mean ignoring them or suppressing them, right? I think for me personally, I think that you need to understand your emotions to be able to control them. So if you're sad, that's the point where you should introspect and say, why am I sad? And sometimes to understand that, you need to cry first. You need to let it out. You need to let out that emotion and truly feel it, so that you don't then lash out. Because again, the theme here is that it's a fear of an extreme reaction that is uncontrolled, right? To let your emotions out in a healthy way is the way to avoid lashing them out later. And again, if there's some fundamental, because again, you said, well, I'm sad for a week and I have to try to figure out by doing these things till I eventually hit the point where I'm like, oh, I know now I fixed my sadness. To me, the better way is to be like, well, let me introspect. I'm crying. What made me cry? What made me sad? Okay, this made me sad. There's something going wrong in my life that is making me sad. Okay, I'm lacking. And these are you're also, you are talking about certain solutions, right? Maybe the sadness comes from a lack of physical, happiness, right? Maybe I'm not happy with my body. Or if the solution is that buying my mother flowers made me happier. Maybe the problem is that you feel like you're out of touch with your family, or that you can't do things for your family, or maybe you feel like no one is grateful for you in your life. And buying your mother flowers, she's grateful. You feel a bit powerful, like you feel like, oh, I'm someone who can do something. I can do something nice for my family. So what you're talking to are all the symptoms of the problem, right? Like doing those things solved it, but that's because you eventually have to understand why that thing helped you. Well, it's because this was the underlying problem that your emotions were trying to point to. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes sense. But as I said at the beginning, I was about to say this when we first started. I think the more we talk, I don't think we disagree necessarily on, yes, I'm not saying suppress your emotions. Why is like going to the gym or buying your mother flowers suppressing your emotion? No, it's not. I don't think it's suppressing your emotion. I think that
because you're distracting yourself, right? It's like if you're sad, you're like, go to the gym. It's like it's not feeling the emotion. You're like pushing the emotion away.
It's about using the emotions to fuel something that does good for you, so you will feel less sad. I'm not saying you should not look within yourself while you're sad. Of course you should. The solution is never going to be fixed if you don't know what you're sad about. But the solution is not to cry, because when you think like, okay, let's go with the solution that you cry every time that you're sad, it releases the hormones. Okay, how will my life become better after I cry? That is my question.
Well, firstly, obviously, I know we've already said this multiple times, but I don't think anyone's saying cry all the time, right? Again, it's like crying is a potential response, right? But again, it helps you release the emotions, because we are emotional creatures, right? That what stands us apart as human beings is that we feel things. Absolutely. And crying can potentially release the emotion that allows you to then deal with the problem where perhaps a bit more objectively, a bit more less being in the throes of the emotion, right? Because sometimes the emotion controls you. And again, you've said as well, you don't think that's good. Sometimes the emotion controls you. It's merely a way of expressing your feeling in a way that's, in my opinion, healthy. It allows that, okay, I've cried it out. Now let me think about what I'm going to do next, and then understand. And again, you can understand the patterns better if you are in touch with what the things that make you sad, as opposed to distracting yourself.
And then what usually happens? You just become sad again and cry again. You become addicted to the releasing of the stress, and you just cry. Okay, I feel bad. Boost of motivation. Still sad. Cry again. Boost of motivation. Still sad. Cry again. And you just keep crying until it's just unbearable at some point. And then you just feel like, you feel very doomed.
I don't know if that's true. I mean, I don't. How would this be any different to going to the gym? Would the gym not also release emotions and then distract you from the problems that you actually have?
It's not distracting. The premise is that you direct your emotions. If you are angry, there are two ways. There's many ways, but let's say there are two ways. One, scream at your mother for no reason, throw people's games on the internet and flame them, or go to the gym, release the anger that way. The anger goes away. It goes away from your body. It doesn't stay there. It's just a choice of how you release it. My point, again, with the sadness, is that you either decide to release it through crying, that eventually it's not really a practical solution to your problems. Crying doesn't fix the issues in your life. It doesn't. It just temporarily makes you feel better.
I don't think, again, I'm not saying that crying fixes your emotion, fixes your problems. It simply allows the expression of emotion. And I disagree again. I don't think that if you're angry, like, again, I feel like you're taking it to extremes very often. I don't think if you're angry, the only two solutions are scream at someone.
I said there are many.
Yeah, there are many. But it's like, okay, there's a destructive option, then there's a go to the gym option. But also there's an option of just understand why you're angry. Express yourself, right? Like, express yourself. Like, okay, let me talk to my friend. Hey guy, like I'm really angry. Okay, why are you angry? I'm angry 100%. Because this thing pissed me off, right? Like this thing pissed me off. Okay, well let's figure out. Okay, let's say, oh, my friend said something mean and that's pissed me off, right? Like my friend, I feel like he backstabbed me and that pissed me off. If you go to the gym, okay, the gym makes you feel good, but it doesn't change the situation that you have with your friend who's backstabbed you, right? Your friend, let's say, was bitching about you at a party and you're upset now, right? Well, the problem is you need to work things out with your friend. And that's what the expression of the emotion is telling you, that, okay, I need to understand what it is that's caused the emotion, and now I can deal with it in a healthy way. And that cannot be done until you express yourself in whatever form that may be, provided it's within a reasonable, healthy, situation and not destructive, as we've both agreed.
You're treating my solution of going to the gym as avoiding your problems. I know why I go. I know why I'm angry, and I go to the gym to release it there instead of lashing out on somebody, right? And
Right.
it's not that I don't think in the gym why am I angry. Of course, I think why am I angry. So I think it's better. It's better, right? Just and I think we
Right.
can both agree on that, right? To be angry, figure out why you're angry, go to the gym to release the anger, and think of the solution of, let's say your friend backstabbed you. Okay, my friend backstabbed me, I'm angry, let's go to the gym. Or my friend backstabbed me, I'm angry, let's figure out why I'm angry and then what do I do about it. Let's do something practical, at least to release the anger and do something that is good for myself. Because when you do something good for yourself, eventually it stacks up. So what you're saying, so what like correct me if I'm wrong, what you're saying,
Sure.
you need to figure out why you're angry and
Right.
come with a practical solution. Let's say it's the backstabbing of a friend. I'm saying you do the same things with the exception that you go to the gym and better yourself in areas that will make you feel good on top of figuring out a solution. That's what I'm saying.
Right. The thing is,
So why is it
though,
not better?
well, the thing is, sometimes there also isn't a solution. This is the other thing. Like, because I feel like the gym, I appreciate that your POV is like, and I agree that the gym is a way of bettering yourself. But there are other ways of bettering yourself, right? There's multiple facets, right? There's bettering yourself as a person as well. Maybe the gym
Yeah.
has nothing to do, right? Maybe what if I'm sad at the gym? What if I'm at the gym and I'm feeling sad about something? The expression of like the working out is not helping me because the fundamental problem is something else, and sometimes that thing doesn't have a solution. I think again, this is where I perhaps disagree with you, is that you're sort of very goal oriented, very results oriented, which I respect. I think that's why you're so successful in, for example, Overwatch and other assets of your life, because you're always looking for a practical solution. But the truth is that sometimes in life there isn't a practical solution. Maybe the thing that you're sad about is out of your control, right? Or maybe just the feeling that you're feeling is out of your control. Let's say you're in a long distance relationship. This is another, actually, I shouldn't have brought that up because this is another controversial topic between you. But let's say you've been living with, okay, rather than let's say taking to the funny part of like starting a relationship long distance. Let's say you've been married for 10 years and you've been living together, right? You've got your family, but now your partner has to spend a year abroad for some reason, right? Like for work or something, they've spent a year abroad. Maybe one day you're just sad that they're not here with you. There's nothing that can be done. When you're next going to meet them, and financial and practical constraints mean that it's going to be a certain amount of time, but you're just sad. Sometimes just expressing the emotion is healthy. There's no practical solution. Going to the gym is not going to help fix this problem. It might help you feel good in a different way, but it's not the problem. The problem is simply I'm feeling sad, and sometimes I just need to vent that sadness. Okay, I've let it out. I feel better. I move on.
I'm gonna use an analogy here with Overwatch because people don't like the gym analogy because they think I'm some meathead. But so let's use an Overwatch analogy, right?
Okay.
You said there's sometimes problems with no solutions, and I would agree on that. I think that if somebody died in your family, you're not gonna bring them back to life, right? But there's always an action that is the best. With Overwatch, there's two. Let's say you have a teammate throwing. Absolutely, you lost the game. Teammate is throwing. You have two choices. One, you stay in spawn, you give up, right? Or okay, let's try my best. Let's take action to try my best, and let's try to make the best out of the situation. I think, and trying to make best out of the situation is a very important skill in life. It's a difference between giving up completely or bettering a situation that is already bad. There's bad and there's worst. And you don't want to be at worst. You want to be at, bad, but let me try to make it as good as I can. It's not necessarily always going to be good or going to be better, but at the very least, it's not going to be rock bottom. I think rock bottom is the worst, and that's why we end up harming ourselves and other people. Because people are saying, there's no solution. That's it. It's over. No, but there's actions that you can actually take to better the situation. I'm not saying it's going to be great, sunshine and rainbows. No, no, no. I'm saying that at least it's going to be better. There's always a good move that you can make.
I don't know if I agree with that, honestly. I feel like it's something that's perhaps simpler in Overwatch, but like, how do you know what the good move is in life, right? Again, it's like I know we're avoiding the gym example, but it's like if there's something fundamentally upsetting you in your life or just making you angry or anything, there's not necessarily always a good solution. Sometimes it's just life.
Yes, but you said there's no always a good solution. I'm not saying there's always a good solution. I'm saying that it's better than doing the worst solution. The worst solution is giving up and doing nothing. So I have two options. Okay, I am sad, I'm angry. let's go to the gym. Option number one. Is it necessarily going to make me feel better? Maybe not, but at least it's more practical to avoiding staying in bed, crying, submerging myself in negative feeling. Eventually is gonna crawl up to my brain to harm myself. I think that it's better to go to the gym, right, and take some sort of action, because you said there's not always action. Well, the worst action that you can take is do nothing, to be a victim. That's the worst action you can take. The worst. The absolute worst. Just like how we said, stay in spawn when you're losing. When somebody's throwing, stay in spawn. That's the worst. I'm not saying you're
Well,
going to win.
again, I think I disagree. I just think fundamentally, sometimes it's okay to do nothing. Like I like the thing about the gym is, again, we keep going to the gym. The gym is essentially a release of emotion, a release of chemicals as well, right? It's like it makes you feel good. It gets you a high in the same way that crying actually does as well. Like crying has the same effect. But sometimes you do need to stay in bed. Like there isn't always like the obsession with productivity is something I disagree with. I don't think
That's
that.
where we disagree. That's
Yeah,
where we disagree.
I think so. I don't, and I also disagree that, again, this slippery slope analogy that we keep coming back to, which is like, well, if you cry, it'll lead to like you expressing your emotions more frequently and you know, eventually cry. Like I don't see emotions that way. I don't feel like emotions are a slippery slope to more and more extreme emotions. I'd like to think that I'm very in touch with my emotions in a way that allows me to understand them as best as humanly possible at any moment in time, and then I move on, right? I sometimes staying in bed is the right thing to do. Like you've had a hard day, just stay in bed and chill out for a bit. Like maybe your life's really stressful. Maybe you just need to like remove yourself from a situation for a little bit of time. Again, like if I take myself as an example, you know, I took a break for a month from content creation, and it was the best thing I did because I just needed to remove myself from a situation that was toxic for me, right? It was a situation where, and I know you'll probably say, well, you took action, SCB. You took action from a situation.
Pretty much,
But
yeah.
but the action was just to do nothing for a while. I spent like 2 weeks just doing nothing, basically, right? Just sitting on my sofa, watching TV. Like these are not necessarily productive actions. You might
Sure.
argue these are lazy actions, but it was good for my mental health because I needed to remove myself from from the internet that was draining me and my job that was draining me. And I feel all
Okay.
the better for it.
Yeah, but it's still taking action. Just because it's unproductive doesn't mean that it's
Well,
just.
in that case, then, but in that same situation, then staying in bed can be considered an action. It's simply the appropriate action to chill out for a while by staying in bed.
Not really, because you usually default into being more sad when you are not taking action. I mean, you just dwell in your own sadness and your own anger. And I really want to go back to the extreme parts. People who do heinous crimes, right? I mean, let's say murder or sexual assault, for example, right? It's something that builds up. People are not born like that. And then if you look back at their past, you can clearly see where it all started, right? And I think that enabling the behavior of emotional, not controlling your emotion, is really, really, really harmful, and it can go down a slippery slope. You disagree, but that's how all violent acts are happening. That's how all rape, murder.
So, so no, I agree with you that unrestrained expression of yourself in the form of violence or anything destructive is bad.
Mm-hmm.
I think where we disagree again, expressing it is not a slippery slope. Like it doesn't. You know, you're saying like, well, these people start somewhere, but that somewhere isn't necessarily that they cried. And again, I think the other part where we disagree is like, I don't necessarily have to do everything I think is okay for other people to do, right? It's like when I say I think grown men or anybody should be free to express themselves with tears and crying, that doesn't mean that I want to cry right now or that I want to cry aloud. I just think that other people, if they need to cry, should be able to cry because I understand that people express themselves in different ways, right? Like I appreciate your perspective. You're very, again, like I said, you're very results oriented, you're very goal oriented. You express yourself a lot like, okay, I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to try and make the best of the situation. But not everybody's like that, you know? Like I'm sure you've had students, you know, you've coached many different types of students in Overwatch, right? Some students who respond well to positive feedback, some who respond well to being roasted. Like some people appreciate being roasted and kind of almost demeaned a little bit, right? They like to be like told that they're shit and stupid, and that motivates them. So I feel like the ability to, like, people can express themselves differently, and that's okay. And I don't think it's necessarily going to lead to a lack of control.
You maneuver people, right? You said that sometimes you roast people and sometimes you're, let's say, nicer. But at the end of the day, you adjust yourself in a way that is going to make other people take action. And at the end of the day, it's again about taking action, right? I could be, there are things that are more harmful. Let's say there's a person that is subjectively better when I teach him nicely and I roast him and then he has worse results. Sure, okay, that's okay. But at the end of the day, I adjust myself so he eventually takes action. If I'm
but that's you though. But what I'm saying is, for that person, they needed to respond in a certain way, and another person needed to do it in a different way. So some people are like you, and they like to take action, and other people prefer to deal with things emotionally, and that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, but the thing is, why is there a disconnect between taking action and dealing with things emotionally? Why is the action disconnected from the emotion? It's not. I feel sad sometimes. I feel angry sometimes, right? And I don't. Okay, I'm sad. Let's distract myself. Let's just go to the gym. Let's go for a run. No. I am sad. Let me think about why I'm sad while I'm running. At the very least, I'll take some action towards, because there's objectively, going for a run is always good. Objectively speaking.
Is it okay? I can draw exceptions there. Well, I broke my ankle.
Yes, in general, taking care of.
What if you've already run? What if you've already run today?
Do something else.
Well, because that's the thing. Let's we've gone to these examples that are productive.
Go for a rock climbing. Go for a walk with your mother. Go for a walk with your dog. Doesn't matter.
Okay, well, instead of taking a walk with your mother, can't I just talk to my mother and express my feelings?
Yeah, sure. While walking, why not?
No, but why do we have to be walking? I've walked today. I've done my exercise. I'm healthy. I'm a gym bro. I'm ripped as shit. Can I not just talk to my mother? Can I not just talk to my mother for a sec?
You can, but again, it's going to make you feel better knowing that you took action to make yourself feel better. And now in your head, you might say, yes, I'm taking action by speaking to my mother. But at the end of the day, speaking can become your default mode. How you crying can become your default. Every time there's a problem, you just talk and talk.
It could, but it doesn't have to. I think this is the essence of where we disagree. Because the few times we've mentioned this, you've always said, well, it'll lead to that becoming... It doesn't have to, though. Like, you surely take some actions without them becoming your default. I can pick up some spheres here and start juggling them. Doesn't mean it's going to become my default to do every single time. I can do it in moderation. I can do it and not do it again.
My point is, though, that again, it can go down a slippery slope of the extreme. The extreme starts with the beginning. The whole point of me, I'm not even letting it begin. I'm cutting it from the beginning.
There we go. So that's the essence of it, right? You're cutting it because you feel like if you express yourself a little bit, it would make you express yourself too much. That in itself, I think, is where
eventually.
But it doesn't have to. This is what I'm saying. It doesn't have to.
But it's the possibility that scares me. Just how there's a possibility when I see a child grabbing a screwdriver and going to the other children in the kindergarten, I'm gonna take off the screwdriver. I'm gonna tell him to never raise a screwdriver ever again. Is it necessarily gonna make him a murderer in the future? Well, no, but I'm not going to give it a possibility. I'm not going to enable it.
See, this is the thing. I think we've kind of gotten to the essence of, where you and I disagree. And from me, if I apologize if this is too forward to say, but from what it sounds like, I think you're very afraid that if you were to express your emotions, it would open a valve that would never be able to stop. I think what you're saying is okay, if I started doing that, I would never stop. And the fear of the reason I'm bringing this up is because it's exactly the point of why I made the video, is that men very often in particular fear the expressing of their emotions because they feel like it will either lead down this explosion, if I express myself a little bit, I'll never be able to stop, or fear of humiliation from other people and other men in particular. Another thing you alluded to, right? It's if I express myself, people would judge me for it. And those are two, they're kind of related, and they're both dangerous, I think, ideas to feel, in the sense that not dangerous that I think they're a threat to society, I think dangerous to yourself, right? It's your emotions... The reason you feel like your emotions are going to explode is because I feel like they're not being expressed. So obviously you feel like if I let any of this, it's like pumping air into a balloon. That balloon is expanding, and you're just really afraid if I open this even one, it's going to just going to explode like this, as opposed to just air goes in and comes out at a steady pace. The balloon never inflates and it never blows up, right? It's like that's the difference of the analogy that I feel like we're differing, is that I feel like you're really afraid of the explosion when never has to reach that point.
But it goes back to the point of why my actions are not an expression of my emotions. That is my question. Why is going for a run or going to the gym is not an expressive an emotion? Why? Why
Because
is when I'm angry and punching the bag is...
You've said multiple times yourself though that you think about why you're sad while you're running. So the running is adjacent to the dealing of the emotion.
It's the action that I decide to take after my emotion, because there are two, like there's not two options, but I said there are two options. Let's say for me, either I am angry and I'm gonna go for a run while thinking while I'm running. At least that's the action that the physical action that I'm taking. Or I'm angry, I'm thinking about why I'm angry. Let's go punch someone in the face. That is the action that I choose.
But again, it's like, let's go to the analogy of your friend has backstabbed you, right? Your friend is like, you know, let's be a very specific example. Hopefully the analogy doesn't go bad. Your friend is sleeping with your ex-girlfriend and you're upset at him. You're mad at him because the running doesn't, like, you may feel productive while running, but the running doesn't change the situation of how you feel about your friend. The only way to do that is to understand your emotion and sort of like come to terms with it. And maybe you're unreasonable in the situation, right? Maybe it's been 2 years and you should be fine with your friend dating this person, but you're not and you can't get over it. The running is adjacent, right? Like at the end of the day, you will continue to feel angry until you come to the grips of why you're angry.
The main point of what I'm saying, again, I'm going to go back to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't, if I run, it doesn't change the fact that my friend slept with my ex.
Right.
But the action that I chose to take is better objectively, because there are two ways for me to deal with this. One, I go for a run and I release my anger to the run. It doesn't necessarily going to make me less angry inside.
Right.
But at least I'm not going to go grab a bat and hit him in the face, right? I think that's a better...
No, but the point is you've only displaced the anger, right? It's like you moved it.
Yeah, that's exactly the point.
Yeah, but there's a better way. There's a better way than displacing it, is to dissipate it, is to let it out. Not in a destructive way. But no, you just said you displaced it. You just said I displaced my anger. I moved it from here to here.
I directed it. That's a better way to put it. I directed the action. I didn't. It's not. I mean, displaced. I just, you know, sometimes English is not my first
the English.
language.
Yeah, English diff.
So when I say this, when I agree with displaced, I meant the action that I choose to take. That's the action that I choose to take according to my emotion. I feel something. I want to do something. You know, I am sad. I want to cry, or I want to buy my mother flowers. And I would always go with buying my mother flowers. Is it going to make me less sad? Possibly, possibly not. I don't know. But I think that the action that I chose to take is a more positive one. You know, instead of sitting in my bed crying, I went, I felt sad the entire walk until I reached the flower store. I might be still sad, but at least I came back to my mother with some flowers. And the action that I chose, that's the action that I chose. That's the main point. The action that you choose to take with your emotion. That is my main point.
Okay, so if you're feeling angry and you didn't go for a run, you didn't do something productive, would you feel like how would that make you feel? If you just sat there and you just thought about it for like an hour,
right? How would
you feel?
I think that I would just stay angry. That's what would happen. I would just stay angry, or I would just slash out on somebody. I would just walk to the kitchen. My mother would come to the house and say something. I would just scream at her. Why? Because I didn't take action to, release the anger from my body. Maybe not all of it, but at the very least, the action that I took is way better than screaming at my mother. I said, okay, so there are two options. I either decide to go for a run or scream at my mother. What is better to get rid of the anger?
I mean, yeah. Again, I know we keep going there, but I just don't fundamentally think that's true. I just don't think there's this like these.
So what is the solution in your opinion? That's what I'm asking.
So what I would say is that I would try and understand my anger. Like, if I sat there for an hour, it would be to understand my emotion, and sometimes that might be letting it out in different ways. I think there's a theme here that the emotion must always be expressed physically. I don't think that's true. I think the emotion can be expressed like mentally or verbally, right? It doesn't have to be like through yelling or through punching. It can just be like thinking about it. Why am I angry? Why am I angry? Okay, like because of this, because of that. Okay, now that I understand, the anger has, because the anger is a psychological thing, right? Like we're kind of channeling thoughts into action constantly, but that's not how it has to be. Like the anger or the sadness or anything is a psychological feeling that can be dealt with psychologically. Like it can be like wrapped up psychologically. I don't think it has to manifest physically, and that's probably what you're afraid of as well, right? You're talking about like this fear of anger manifesting itself violently.
Yeah, I don't want to scream at my mother, sure.
No, but so what I'm saying is, it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah, but again, it's like there's things in reality that happen, right? You know, let's say there's tension in the room. Let's say you're with your soccer team, and you and another teammate are arguing about something, and you see things are starting to heat up. What will the coach say? You go take a walk. Why? Why would he say that? Why doesn't he say, guys, sit in the room, express your emotions? Because they know if they just stay there long enough and the heat is gonna build up, they're gonna start acting violent towards each other. There's the reality. I mean, in theory, what you're saying is absolutely perfect. In theory, if we could all sit in our bed and think, you know, Danny, why am I angry? Just by sitting in my bed, I can release the anger from my body. My point is that through action, you release things from your body. Happiness, sadness, doesn't matter, right? I'm not going to speak about negative emotions exclusively. But if you were to put me angry with another person in the room, if I stay there long enough and I still keep being angry, what I'm afraid might happen, I'm not saying it's going to happen 100% of the time, but in reality, it happens more often than not. You're eventually going to punch him in the face if he's going to piss you off enough.
Well, I think that's, again, it's what we're getting at here is a individual difference, an individual preference. Again, I may respond one way and another person may respond another way, but I would like the spectrum of responses to be wider for people, right? So
I would love as well.
Right.
Honestly, I would love if people could do what you described. But let's be real.
So I can do
reality.
it.
Sure,
I can do it.
If that works for you, it's fantastic. But for most people, what is going to happen, right? If they're angry, they might kill another person. That happens.
I just don't. I don't know if I agree with that.
Okay, so they might scream at another person. Let's go with less extreme measure. They might scream at another person, right? They might very likely to scream, very likely to lash out, very likely to throw something, very likely to throw a tantrum, very likely to throw a game, or, you know, at the end of the day, if somebody, and I see two guys or two women standing in front of each other, things are heating up, I'm going to tell him, whatever, go take a walk. Because I know by him taking a walk, he's going to cool off.
Well, but again, I think I don't really even think it's productive for either of us to make general statements about like how generally people would behave.
But we have to.
Well, I don't think I agree, though. That's what I'm saying. I don't think I agree that most people would be this way. I don't know if we really have any meaningful way of understanding how most people would behave. What I would like to get at is like...
We do, yeah? Of course. There are studies on that, right? I mean...
well, the studies say that crying is okay. Studies saying that crying is okay, and like it's a healthy expression of emotion. It helps bonding. It helps your own psychological release of stress.
Crying is okay is an opinion, right? Saying crying releases stress is scientific. But I can also say that masturbating it also releases stress. So why wouldn't I just masturbate every day? Stay at home, masturbate 10 times a day, right? Because I mean, but you can see how it can become an addiction. I mean, sure, but it can become an addiction. And now I'm not going to be interested in women because there's just porn on the internet. Why would I even talk to women? And he's going to lead me into a very bad spot in my life.
So you may feel that. Good. Okay. So again, you may feel that way. And that's, I am totally okay with you feeling that way about yourself. It's your body. Do whatever the hell you want, man. Like if you don't want to do that, go for it. But I'm sure you're aware that there are millions of people around the world who masturbate all the time and have healthy relationships with other people.
Yes,
and they don't devolve into porn addiction.
Yeah, but in general, it does harm more often than not. It does.
Where are you pulling that from? Where are you pulling that from?
Well, I mean,
where is this general come from?
This is my personal experience from people that I talk to. You can just walk down the street, right? For example, you can just walk down the street and truly if you ask people that, just let's say masturbate like 3 times a day, I'm just gonna go to the extreme, right? What is the likelihood of them maintaining a positive relationship with their significant other? I don't think in general it's very likely. Are there some? Sure, of course, there's exceptions to the rules everywhere. But in general, we can agree as a society that masturbating 5 times a day is not great, just like how crying 10 times a day is not good, right? How
I don't even know where to begin with this conversation, 'cause I think we're just so in the realm of throwing theory out that like there's no, like I don't have specific evidence on hand ready to disprove what you're saying. I don't think you have evidence to prove what you're saying. Like I don't think you have some study that you've read that's like shows that this amount of masturbation in a day is causing like the deterioration of society or anything, right? Like I think the point, I think I'd rather stick to the essence of the point going back is like there are things that you can do. Again, it's like the moderation thing again, right? It's like if we bring back to crying, you don't have to cry 10 times a day to cry once a day and be okay with it, or once however so often, and it doesn't have to escalate, right? And that's what I'm getting at. Like when, because we keep going to this point of should people be able to cry? And if I say it's okay for you to cry, you're worried that that's going to lead to people doing it an unregulated amount. They're just going to cry all the time.
Absolutely, I think that it's fair for me to be concerned about that, because that leads to a negative and destructive to yourself and other people.
By that same logic, though, if I said to people, it's okay to go to the gym, would that mean they would work themselves to the gym out of extreme to the point where their muscles, are too sore and they end up hurting themselves because they drop heavy equipment on themselves or something like that, or like just physically damage their bodies and tear their muscles?
But what you're saying doesn't correlate to the feeling. Just me going to it's like saying, what if I say to tell people to go to the gym when they're angry and just a car hits them on the way there? It's kind of a logic fill, right?
No, because it's like what I'm saying is it's okay to cry so that you can express that emotion, because crying itself is just it's an act in the same way that going to the gym is an act, right? It's like it's something that you do, okay, and then you deal with the emotions internally, right?
It's the action that you take.
Yeah. So your problem is if I say it's okay to cry, it would lead to like unregulated crying. But why is it different if I said it's okay to go to the gym?
It's not even about the unregulated crying. It's about coming with practical solution to fix the problems in your life when you're sad and when you're angry. If your default action is crying every time things go bad, how can you better yourself as a person and not get into these spots?
But it doesn't have to be, again, there's a difference between doing it and defaulting, right? It's like, it's okay to do it. Again, it's the same way with the gym. Like the gym doesn't have to be my only response to things, in the same way that crying doesn't have to be my only response to things. It can just be one of many responses.
Any action, so let's not use the gym, any action that leads to bettering your life objectively, you can measure that you being in physical shape will generally, yes, there might be some guy that is going to be like, oh my God, you're buff, I'm not going to stab you. Okay, does it mean that in general being jacked leads to a negative impact in your life? No. Just because some guy might be jealous and stab you because of it? No. No.
But so we're kind of alluding to physical wellness. Why is there not an emphasis on psychological wellness? Like, why is there not an emphasis on being a sort of healthy and introspective person?
Because we express a lot of our feelings through actions, or actually we express most of our feelings through actions. That's why we feel like punching something when we're angry. The default is I want to punch something, right? Default.
So that's your default.
Or screaming, or it's like with action. We want to do action. Crying as well. When we're sad, we want to cry, right? Default.
Yeah, that's a person's default. That's your default. I don't think. Right. I don't think it's generally people's default.
But in general, there's an action that we take. Doesn't matter what action it is. There's an action that triggers as soon as an emotion happens. We're angry, we're scream, punch something, I don't know, go for a run. And I'm saying that going for a run as your default, training your brain that your default action is going to lead better life in the future. I think that saying, making my brain think, okay, let's go for a run every time that I'm angry, is going to lead me to a better life than screaming every time that I'm angry. Just like how every time that I'm sad, I'm going to train my brain to buy my mom some flowers every time that I'm sad instead of crying. That is what the main point that I'm trying to, move across here.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how I want to how I can express to you because we've tried to go over this a few times, but like I still believe the default is merely distracting. It's merely a distraction from the thing that you're feeling.
It's not. It's why is it though? Try to explain to me why I'm
Yeah.
distracting myself when I go for a run. And
Okay.
why is crying not distracting yourself? That is the I would
Because
like to
crying is an expression of the emotion. It's a release of the emotion, and
right.
that's it's dealing with the emotion because it's very much tied to what you're feeling, right? It's like, again, it's kind of like, let's take the J3 example that we brought up, right? When we said like J3 gives his father a paper, it says your debts are cleared, and he cries in response.
Right.
He's very much responding to it. If J3 gave him the paper and he went to the gym, it would not be dealing with what J3 has just done for him, right? It would just be him holding the paper at the gym. He's not actually acknowledged what has happened in between. He's not acknowledged what the paper means, which is the paper is saying, you're debt free, how does that make you feel? And the real response is, it makes me feel so overwhelmed that I'm releasing it with crying, right? It's like, that's the best way to express it at that moment in time. And again, yeah, you could say, well, maybe another expression would be to punch something, but
you're
crying,
using specific things. Why? Okay, so let's say I mean, I don't want to keep using the J3 father example as crying because people would think that I'm just kind of.
Okay, well, let's say a person,
because I don't, because I have to make sure that I don't.
Sure.
I think that it was him showing gratitude. Like, I mean, that's what I said. That usually we default to crying by showing gratitude because usually we don't know how to show appreciation. Like, think about it. How could he really show appreciation truly, like from his heart? Yeah, we can say thank you, but it can be kind of feel disingenuous. But if you know that somebody's crying, usually it's kind of being, kind of the emotion is being real. You know, it's expressed in a real way.
So okay, well, let's talk about someone else. Let's talk to you if you're okay talking in your own life and own examples.
Yeah.
Let's say you were to do that for your father, right? Let's say you pulled out, you gave your father a piece of paper that said, "Dad, I have cleared all your debts with the money I made." What would you appreciate as a response from your father?
No, I'm not saying that him crying was a bad response. I'm just saying that if I would see him cry uncontrollably for an hour, I think that would be kind of ridiculous.
But again, why go there? Why go for an hour? Why can't the cry be for like 30 seconds?
Because it's a possibility. But again, it's a possibility can lead down to a bad path. But him crying through gratitude, what bad path can he take, really? If he's crying because he's grateful, what's the bad path? What's the worst outcome could happen from that? That's my question.
I don't think the two are necessarily. Again, it's like, I don't think that it has to have any bad examples. Just like, it's just an expression of emotion amongst the vast spectrum. If we start going down like, okay, well, if you cry, well, you might turn into someone who never stops crying. It's no different to being like, if you smile, you'll turn into the Joker and never stop smiling, and then cut people's lips and make them smile like you. You know, like, I don't think it's even really relevant.
No, but there's also a possibility of, if you constantly do it, it might become really hurtful to other people. Let's say, and we have this by the way, in Israel here, because we have two memorial days, one for the Holocaust and one for the people, the fallen. You know,
right?
And they're like a I mean, I don't think it's the right word, but maybe it's like a siren. It's like a minute of silence. I think that's how they call it, right?
Right. Yeah.
Like there's like a siren going. We stand and we kind of bow, or like kind of turn our heads, and we show our respect. And what usually will happen when you go to school as middle school or elementary school, you'll see kids starting to laugh, right, uncontrollably. Like, something is just funny. They cannot control the laugh and just start laughing in a very serious and moment that you shouldn't laugh, right? And so that's what I'm saying. That also laughing, I think that it can become, if it's too much, it can become bad, right? But I'm saying that gratitude specifically, I'm sure that I can come with a way where it can go bad, but I'm saying that gratitude, we are enabling it a little bit more. We can welcome it a little bit more because it has no bad actions coming after that, right? But the crying because you are sad or angry and performing a certain action, it could be harmful. There's a possibility, and actually, even though it's not super, it's not the 99%, but let's say, I mean, I'm not going to measure with percent, but just because there's a possibility and it's very dangerous, it's very important to not allow ourselves as people to take negative action, or possibly in the future they could become negative actions by, crying, because then in the later down the line you might cry
So
when
yeah, no, go ahead. If yeah, so I just wanted to, because
oh, you
to
continue.
your
I think you
example
get a
of,
point.
yeah, to the example of, like, let's say the children, they're laughing at a moment of reverence, right? It's inappropriate for them to be laughing at, again, let's say it's a funeral and something really, inappropriate for them to laugh. The problem isn't laughter. The problem is just the children are not being appropriate in that situation. So I don't think, again, where we're disagreeing is like,
Because they
I
cannot
would,
control their emotions.
yeah, but that's not the problem of the emotion of laughter. Like, I wouldn't come to that and say laughter is bad, or that saying laughter is okay is encouraging these children. It's just that these children in this moment have ceased to grasp the gravity of the situation, which that's what it really is, right? The reason
Right.
a kid would do that, they're just immature and they
Mhm.
don't understand why we must be sad. They just simply don't, like, in that moment they don't understand why we have to be silent in that moment,
Correct.
because
Correct.
the context is beyond them, right? They can't understand at their age the seriousness of war and death, right? So that has nothing to do with the laughter, though, right? The laughter is just they're laughing because they're being silly and they're not understanding the situation. So I
Okay.
would never, from that, I would never go, I would never use that as a sort of criticism of the emotion of laughter, in the same way that, again, if someone wanted to cry, I mean, what would you feel is like an inappropriate moment to cry? Let's try and be a bit more specific. Like, I don't think that would be the fault of crying, but let's say, what would you say is an inappropriate moment to cry?
Let's say that you walk down the street and I don't know, your elbow hits the pole and it just kind of hurts a little bit and you start crying. You think that's appropriate?
Why not? If it really, really is painful, why does it matter if you cry? What would happen if you
Well,
cried?
because what happens when more serious things happen? You'll just cry harder.
Doesn't it depends on the context? Maybe I'll cry sometimes, maybe I'll be sad sometimes. Like, I don't think it's a
But
blanket rule.
but that just you basically taking away your own control of the actions you can take to better the situation. I mean, if I hit the ball, I'm not gonna cry. Either if it's really bad, I'm gonna go to the hospital. I'm not gonna sit there crying.
You
If
could do
if it's
both.
really
You could cry and go to the hospital. Like, you can be
I mean,
crying on your way to the hospital.
yeah, fair, but why is the default emotion to cry? I mean, I just logically. So again, it goes back to the point. Okay, you hit your hand with the pole and it hurts and you start crying. What happens again when serious things happen? What happens when somebody next to you is gonna collapse? So will you start crying? Will you start crying, or what? Are you gonna call the ambulance? But you say, okay, why can't they do both? Because they're gonna be crying while trying to talk to the ambulance, and you're gonna be able to control your emotion. You're not gonna be able to talk. You're not gonna be able to perform. She's gonna tell you in the ear, "Hey, do the CPR," and you're like, "Oh, I can't."
Well, crying can also be a social indicator, right? Like, crying can also let other people know that you need help. Like, you can be very upset, and maybe if you don't express that, people don't know you're very upset. And if you cry, other people can understand there's something to help you with, and that's where, again, it can be a helpful social tool, so that your friends better understand you.
My point is that it's gonna kind of blur down your ability to perform under stress. When really bad things happen, you're gonna have to perform at the end of the day, or you're gonna collapse, right? And if you collapse, it's gonna lead down to a really bad path. And I think you can understand where I'm going with this, right? What
Right.
can happen, right? But it's very important that once you're sad to control your emotions, because when it's gonna be, when shit hits the fan, you're gonna have to be ready to perform actions, because sometimes these actions might be necessary. Sometimes you cannot sit there and just think, why am I sad when there's a guy just lying on the floor dying? You cannot. You're gonna say, okay, why am I sad here? Why do I want to cry? No, no, no.
But
You have
that's
to
but
you have to
that's
perform.
that's very, like, again, that's not a problem with the act of crying, though. Again, the point that we're making, simple, or that I made with the video, is simply that it is okay as a spectrum of emotions to cry. But if someone is collapsed on the floor, you don't have to cry necessarily. You can also just act. But that's dependent on the context of the situation, and it doesn't remove the ability for crying to be a valid response in a different situation. For in that situation, the correct response to be to help this person. But also, we are fallible human beings, and sometimes we make the wrong decisions, and that's okay as well. Like, sometimes, like,
Sure.
I'm sure we've all been in situations where something's happening and you wish you intervened, but you didn't.
But it's about letting this thing grow. When you allow yourself to cry at little things, eventually you will allow yourself. it's like a little tumor, right? It will grow and expand eventually. And when shit hits the fan at serious things, your default emotion will be to cry. And eventually, let's say you go down the street. We're gonna go use a dying man as an example. There's a dying man. You see somebody next to him crying. What are you gonna do? Move. Let's try to bring him back to life. Let's see what we can do here. But it's very important to not cry and do the action, because once you take action, you will grow into being somebody who takes action not only for yourself but for other people. That's why, again, we're naturally attracted to more stoic people, because every time we have a problem, we want a solution. If you go to the doctor and you tell him, I don't know, let's say I have cancer, you don't want him to start crying and being sad. No, he's like, okay, he's gonna sit there with a straight face, tell you, okay, this is what we're gonna do, save your life. And if a doctor would start crying as soon as he came to him, and we would realize that you have cancer, and he would start crying, what would you naturally do? Like, I just want to see another doctor. He would just leave.
Emotions are not a slippery slope, though. That's what I'm saying. Like, we keep going back to this
but
idea.
You give them the possibility to grow. That's what I'm saying.
But why not? But if you have a full spectrum, this is exactly what I'm saying, though. I actually think it's the opposite. So let's say, you're saying you're really worried, and I agree with you. We don't, in general, unregulated emotions are bad. People not being able to have in touch with their emotions and just let their emotions dictate them is bad. But
okay,
the more likely, in my opinion, way that's going to happen is when you don't allow people the full expression of emotion. So if you don't allow them the ability to cry, emotions, the world is oppositional in many ways, right? To feel sadness, you feel happiness. So to understand happiness, you must understand what sadness is, right? If sadness as an emotion didn't exist, you wouldn't have joy, right? You wouldn't feel so good about a huge achievement if you always had the thing, right?
Yeah.
If you were born rich, $1,000 doesn't mean much to you, but if you were born poor, $1,000 means a lot to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the same way, if you simply deny the possibility of someone being able to cry, you're basically pushing them in one direction. You're pushing them in, let's say, anger, right? It's only want you to be if you yell, you go to the gym, that's okay, but crying is bad. You're now actually pushing someone in one direction. I don't think if you open the whole spectrum of emotion to someone, why would they gravitate towards one over the other? If in certain emotions, in certain situations they can cry, that's okay. Certain situations they can yell or yell at themselves or be angry, that's okay. And then they can pick the relevant emotion for the relevant context, right?
Yes.
As opposed to trying to deny them any one emotion because that emotion in of itself is bad.
Why would you like to? So the question is, why would you like to push them to a direction that, let's say going to the gym, going for a run, be more stoic when things go bad instead of crying? Why? Because it leads to a more productive life for you and the people around you, and it builds also for society. At the end of the day, the reason why we're able to live here so comfortably is because of the people before us. People that we were before them and people before them. And I'll tell you what's funny, because now we're going to drift to a different topic, because I think we're kind of going back,
Yeah.
The same thing. So I actually read a study, and I there's always a counter study, but I'm just going to go with what I read. 2022 was it was the most suicide, I believe, of all time. That's what I read. 2022. Right. 2022. It's kind of sad. Just really saddens me, and just by saying it saddens me, it shows expression of emotion. It saddens me. Doesn't mean I'm going to cry about it, right? I'm just it saddens me.
Well, it saddens me, but doesn't mean I'm going to cry about it either. But I might if I need to.
Sure. So, how is it possible that I think that it's not, I would say arguably, but not really. We live in the most comfortable time of all time. We live 2022, 2023 now. The world is very comfortable. Everything is accessible. Yet people suffer more from negative emotions that lead them to killing themselves compared to world wars, people who physically fought, people who saw their friends die on the battlefield.
So what's your point here? That it's somehow related to
the point
emotions?
Is that people were less. Well, basically taking your own life is the most form of expression of sadness. So how is it possible that when really bad things happened, people were not killing themselves as often as today, where objectively less bad things happen around the world and around the people around us? objectively, I think that we both can agree, that being sad because your girlfriend broke up with you, objectively, is better than watching your friend blow to pieces in a war in front of your face, or your family, or your brother, or your mother. Doesn't matter.
Right.
So, but back then, people were more stoic, more they were expressing their emotions in more productive ways for themselves, their families, their friends, and society as a whole. And that's why we're able in 2023 live so comfortably. They built the society for us through stoic actions,
I mean, the
or
I
not stoic action, by being stoic, rather. I would say.
I mean the thing is, this is, I just disagree with this on every level, because ironically, a set of people who have very high suicide rates are soldiers who come back from war, because they're
Right.
traumatized by the things they've seen. So
Absolutely right. Yeah.
yeah, so I don't think the correlation, I just don't really see the correlation here between what we're talking about. Like, there's like the you know, with science there's always variables, right? When you talk about like correlation, it's always about variables, right? You need to make sure that the two things, if you're saying this caused this, that you're not allowing other variables to cloud the thing, right? It's like left-handedness, right? It's like the have you seen that graph of like the growth of left-handedness, right?
Yeah, but we have to talk in generalities, because if we go
Yeah,
to
yeah, yeah,
specifics,
but
we can come with a million examples.
yes, yes, yes. But what I'm saying is this is like too general, right? So to, again, for anyone who isn't familiar, there's like the graph of like the number of people who are left-handed has grown over time. That's not because
Yeah.
more people are left-handed. It's just because people weren't forced to not be left-handed. So you could look at that graph and draw the conclusion, oh, well, we as a society are making more left-handed people. No, the truth is other variables outside of those two things, which is that society used to look down on left-handed people and now it doesn't, is why this has happened. So I don't really agree with this correlation of like an increased suicide rate with somehow being related to emotions, because I just don't think there's no way I can draw this conclusion. There's no way you can draw this conclusion. A better, if you want to talk general, a better thing that we can talk about generally, which again I cited in the video, is that a disproportionate number of suicides are men. Like
Yes,
3/4
yes.
of suicides are men. So there we can perhaps look at the variable more specifically and say, well, why do men commit suicide more often than women? And that's the point of where my video came from, which is that many things would point to the fact that men's inability to express themselves, deal with their mental health, is what causes this, right? So that's where
Yeah.
the need for men to be able to express themselves and their emotions, we can draw that conclusion and say that's clearly unhealthy, because it's not the same problem for women. Women are not doing this at the same rate that men are. So where's the problem? Well, the problem is, where's the differences? Well, the difference is that men don't get that same level of emotional expression that women do. For the reasons you've spoken about, right? Where like
Wait,
stoicism.
So your point is that more men kill themselves because they express themselves much less than women. Is that the main point that you're getting at? Because
That's
I could mention a lot of points that are very very practical in the world, like in the real world. They're true, right? And we can a lot. I think that most of us. I'm not gonna say all, because again, I'm gonna speak in generalities that a lot of us can agree on. Why are men killing themselves? Well, there's a lot of variables. Well,
yeah.
dating life became significantly worse with apps, with Instagram, with all that stuff. So it's very hard for the average man to find a woman that he likes. It's very hard.
But right. That
Many
is,
reasons. I can mention many.
yeah,
reasons.
of course. There. I mean, that's the whole point. What I'm saying, that society has changed massively, so it's hard to always draw exact conclusions. But the point being that,
Why?
let's say,
Why is it hard to? Why though? Why is
Because-
it hard to draw exact conclusions? If I can see that.
because
like,
but
let's
that
see-
because that might be one facet of what has changed for men, but there could be other things that are better for men, right? Like there's other ways in which the world is better for men now than it was 100 years ago. So
Possibly,
they
but
don't have to be peasants. They were peasants 1,000 years ago. Now they don't have to be. Well, where do we draw the graph of peasants versus Tinder?
Possible. What you're saying, I mean, sure, I can agree that there are some ways that men are having it better, right? But like the general things that make us feel happy, our well-being, and respected as men are now less accessible. If you look 50 years back, it was not really hard to find a wife. You would have a happy family of children, and not everyone, of course. We would usually, in general, you would have a happy family that your kids would respect you, and your wife would respect you. You would feel respected at home. You would feel respected at your work. It would be, you could buy much more with the money that you would make. You could easily live with a very big family with your salary at a corporate job. And nowadays it becomes very, very hard. So the expectation is a lot higher for you to make money. It's really hard for you to attract women. It's really hard for you to be respected. It's really hard. So if it's very hard for you to be respected, you're more likely to feel really bad about yourself.
Right. But all those problems.
I don't believe it has anything to do with expressions of emotions, though.
But again, the key variable that we're talking about in this instance is men and women. You're pointing out to a lot of things, which is like, okay, well, this is harder for men now, but life is hard for many people, and life is hard for many people in many different ways, and.
But again, it's not the specific. Let's talk in general. I mean, you could always say there's LeBron James. His life is good. I'm sure.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is, so the only general variable we really have is men versus women.
Right.
Why are 3/4 of suicides men specifically and not women? Because women also have problems that they have now that they didn't have 50 years ago or whatever.
So exactly. So let's get into that point. Why? We can just kind of reverse what I said about men, and now you can see how it benefits women a little bit more. I mean, it's much easier for a woman to find a guy. I mean, she has so many options. The average person doesn't have any options, realistically. And you might say, I mean, from your experience, possibly, maybe it doesn't necessarily correlate to you. But the average man doesn't have options with women. If you go down the street and you ask the average person, they did studies on this. When was the last time that you had sexual intercourse? A lot of times, a lot of people are virgins until like the age of 22 when they're men 23. They weren't sexually active. I think it was like 70-60% were not sexually active for the past year. When if you look at it 20 years back, about 85-90% of people were sexually active. So and so you can see how it benefits women more these type of ways. You could have more options.
Right. But that's like one very niche area you're picking, because on the flip side, you can also cite sexism, the glass ceiling, the pay gap, sexual harassment, domestic violence. There's many things you could point to say women have this specific area much harder than men. But the real point of what you're getting at is loneliness, right?
Yes.
Is loneliness.
Yes.
But these are all the things that we're talking about, that I was talking about at the start, which is that, like, if men are lonely, they can express those emotions to each other, or not express those emotions, and that's what leads to more extreme actions. Let's go with suicide.
Let's go with your, express their emotions. I am lonely. No girl wants me. I am broke. I am fat. I express my emotion. Oh, okay. Did they change my life? Did I get a girl now? Did I get in shape? Did I make more money?
No, but it helps you. It helps you deal with that emotion that otherwise might haunt you, right?
But it doesn't change the circumstances. It does.
But it's not either or. It's not either or, though. Again, like, whether you go to the gym or not, like, the gym is not 24/7, right? The gym isn't life.
Yeah.
Whether you go to the gym or whether you take action with your career or whatever, those are all outside of emotional responses. Those are not adverse to having a emotional response. The problem, however, is clearly an emotional and psychological one, right? What drives suicidal ideation is a psychological problem. It's not lack of gym time, right? It's not that, like, if I get my quota of gym time, that will stop me from those ideas.
I would say that there are people who want to kill, like, let's say there are men who want to kill themselves. They go to the gym, they build a really good body. All of a sudden, confidence, boosts up, and all of a sudden they want to kill themselves. Just like how there's a guy who is practically homeless, right? He wants to kill himself when he's homeless. He makes a little bit of money. Now he's not that broke. He's not homeless anymore. He doesn't want to kill himself anymore. All of these things, they correlate through taking actions to better your life.
But
it has nothing to do with emotional expression.
This is to posit that somehow being buff or being rich would remove you from the bad feelings. Well, that is not true. Celebrities kill themselves all the time. It's actually at a disproportionate rate, because the wealth, the fitness, the glamour, the desire of other people is not the problem. It's a deeper emotional problem and a psychological problem.
But it's less likely for you to think about committing suicide when you are in shape, when you're not lonely, when you have money, that all of all of the things
I
that,
don't know.
you having a house, you can pay your bills, all of the stress goes away?
Do you have like some evidence for this? I have no idea if this is true or not.
Okay, let's say I don't have evidence. Who do you think, just logically thinking, who is more likely to feel bad about themselves? Fat, broke, lonely, or married for 20 years, rich, in shape? That's
I
logically.
I
Logically.
don't know. I'm not
You
happy
think
with
that
this.
you think they're both on the same level in terms of feeling bad, or they're as likely to feel bad about their lives, about themselves?
I think this is just a bizarre like
No,
I
but
know
it's a
people.
genuine question.
No, because it's like you're drawing a comparison out of thin air. Like they're
But
all
it's
individual people that have their individual like if you're born rich.
in
No,
general. Let's
even
be
general
very-
though. Even general though. Like even in general,
Okay.
you can be all these things that you consider undesirable and still be very happy. Like you could still be very happy. And
But
again, it's just
you're not
it's
speaking in
content.
general, though. You're saying specifically. Is there a person who's fat, broke, and lonely? Is there a person out there that is happy? Sure. Is there a sad person
Well,
who's
maybe the
rich, not
fat broke,
lonely?
yeah, but maybe the fat, lonely, broke people are in a comfortable and welcoming environment that isn't toxic to them. Like I just
In
don't think that
general,
they're not.
in
There's not a
general.
correlation, so I can't draw this general conclusion because there's no
Of course, there's
correlation.
a correlation, and of course, there's a correlation, and
But
also,
this is the children are starving somewhere in the world example. Like that doesn't stop you from wanting to eat, not wanting to eat the food on your plate, right? Like children around, like it's like I'm sure you've heard that like you better eat because there's children starving around the world. Well, that child doesn't care about that because that other person somewhere else struggling does not make your own struggles any less prescient, right? So you can be
but now
rich.
you're comparing struggles. I'm saying specifically, who is less likely to feel bad about their life and themselves, and least likely for them to want to kill themselves? That's the question. Not what, like, comparing starving children in Africa compared to the different struggles. What you're saying is different struggles. I'm saying specifically, who is less likely to have, or more likely to have, negative emotions? The person that his life is you know, below average or above average? That's the question.
Well, though, but those what? So you're trying to get me to say general. But what I would rebut with, those are your subjective, like judgments of someone's lives, which I don't even agree with in the first place. Like, what is fat, right? Like, fat is a subjective,
Come on,
subjective.
come on.
Yeah, it's a subjective line to draw. Like,
It's
what at
not.
what
It's not.
weight?
It's
At
not.
what
It's not.
weight are you fat, or and what weight are you ugly? At what weight?
Well,
At what point are you broke? Because you can be like have not a lot of money and have enough
well,
to be happy.
if you go by the doctors, like the science, there's clear weights like the BMI that like says you
Well,
are obese or you're fat.
people who are, let's say, clinically obese can still
Right.
be very happy.
It can be, but in general, they will be less happy than a jacked dude or a jacked woman. In
That's just
shape
not
woman.
true, though. They're just not true. Like, you don't have any evidence. I don't have any evidence for this. I have known of no study that has found this thing. Like,
You're
I
kind of
don't.
being a.
No, I know you
I
think I'm being obtuse, but I'm
you
genuinely.
are.
I'm
I
genuinely
genuinely
telling
think
you.
that.
You just want me to say, "Oh yeah, fat, ugly people have a bad time in life," but I don't
Yeah,
know if that's
sure.
true. I
Well,
don't know if that's true. I genuinely have never read anything that says that's true.
Okay. So let's kind of work this way through where we can objectively kind of measure, kind of in
Because
a way.
because again, like if we were to go there, like Scandinavia has really high suicide rates. Why? By all metrics, it's one of the most well-developed areas of the world because it's dark there. It's as simple as that. It's as simple
Sure.
as that because it gets dark and people don't get sunlight. So
Be-
like the correlation of like, well, they live very happy, comfortable lives with good public transport and all, like it's irrelevant to the equation of how they feel.
Okay. So as I said, there are things that will make us more likely, more prone to feeling bad. Like I said, loneliness. We both agree that feeling lonely is correlates heavily on the fact that you are going to feel very, very bad about yourself, right? So let's go back to the point of being obese, morbidly obese, compared to jacked. Who is more likely? Who is more likely now to get, if you're a guy, to get girls? The jacked person with confidence or the morbidly obese person let's drop the confidence, because you can say a morbidly obese person can be with confidence, sure, but I think that in general,
I just see this is where I think our values don't align, right? Like,
okay,
because I don't think like you can have a partner and be lonely. You can be in a room full of people and be lonely.
absolutely.
And be unsatisfied. You could be on your own. You could be single. I'm single and I'm not like depressed with my life. Not any more than I am every day. Just, so like yeah, you could say the jacked guy will get girls, but
Yes.
that doesn't necessarily correlate with happiness.
Doesn't necessarily, but it's just the likelihood of feeling less lonely when you are with people. It's just less likely. Could you feel lonely with a partner or with a group of friends that you just don't? We are surrounded. Sometimes we're surrounded by people that are very toxic to us, and it's a very unhealthy environment. So we have to be very careful who we choose to be friends with, and also who we choose to
Well, okay,
partner up with.
let me turn this question another way, just so we can make a different breakthrough. If
Yeah.
you weren't in shape, do you think people would like you less?
Yes. They
You
would
think that?
respect me less. They would respect me less. That's for sure. Yes.
What if I told you that I wouldn't think of you any differently if you were not the handsome fellow you are now, but let's say subjectively less attractive? I wouldn't think any different of you.
You possibly. But my experience in the world, when I was out of shape, less people respected me, both men and women. As soon as I got in shape, more people respected me, both men and women, because it shows a lot of good traits about yourself. When you go to the gym, it shows you're disciplined, because acquiring a body is hard work at the end of the day. There's no exact shortcuts. You cannot build a body by sitting on your couch. You have to take actions, do something to build up a body. It shows discipline, it shows hard work, it shows that you are showing up every day, every 2 days, and
So so again, I would say like this is kind of like a similar, and I feel sad that you feel that way because your value is not in your physical appearance. In my opinion, your value to the world is not necessarily in your physical appearance. It could be. If your job is to be a model, then maybe your physical appearance is very important. But even then, we have models of all different shapes and sizes. And regardless, you as an individual, your value doesn't stop and end there because we know that like something like a physical appearance can come and go. What I would say is what you're pointing to is like is in itself a toxic trait of the people around you, that they would view you differently purely because you got more in shape. In the same way that people always complain about, well, when I was broke, nobody wanted to hang out, like the number one rap trait of like, when I was broke, nobody wanted to fuck with me, and then I got rich and everybody was trying to be my friend. Well,
yeah.
the truth is the person didn't really change. The toxic trait of other people wanting to use that money for that person for their money is what caused it. So it's not really even genuine friendship, right? Genuine friends value you despite your money or your appearance.
Possibly, but you do change as a person when you grow. You have to, when you are achieving things, you build confidence. How do you build confidence? Through competence. You know you're competent in something. You go to the gym, you build a jack body. You know you're a competent person that understands that you need to go to the gym. You're very disciplined, and it helps you build the confidence within yourself. Are there people who are not confident even though they're jacked? Sure, but I would argue the point that they would be significantly less confident if they weren't in shape. Okay, but it's a lot of things. When you make money, when you are in shape, when you are building your social skills, you're very good at talking, you're very good with your social skills, right? You feel much more confident, and that naturally attracts more people to you. Doesn't mean that it's fake. Just because I'm confident doesn't mean that I'm jacked or I'm
Yeah,
rich.
but what we're alluding to here is competence at something. The competence doesn't have to start and end at physical appearance. It can
Yeah.
be, like you said,
No, I'm not saying.
your social skills or your intellect or your talent at drawing, which has nothing to do with your body or being jacked or being broke. Those are independent of all those things.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't mean specifically being in shape. It's like a lot of things. You cannot just be in shape and all of a sudden everybody will like you. You can still be a loser that is just in shape. There's no, you can be, but if you are successful at what you do, you're respected by your peers. It doesn't matter. You could be a farmer, but everybody respects you as the farmer. If everybody has any farming questions, they come up to you. You're in shape. everybody around you are very good socially. Everybody like people like talking to you. You have really good conversationalist. That's how you say it.
Yeah,
Doesn't matter.
conversationalist. Yeah, yeah.
Well, I think that this builds up to a character that you're gonna be more likable. More people will like you, men and women, naturally, because you have so many good attributes. But just because they like you because you're these things doesn't mean that it's fake.
No, but if that's the only reason they like you and they would change that around you, they're not really your good friends, are they?
So the question is, what else do you need to do for the why is not what is where I'm getting at? What is the real me? I'm those things. I achieve those things. This is me. I achieve those things. So why? Where else would? What else could they be liking? Because they say it's not the only thing. Why?
Well, your
What
personality, who
else?
you are,
Yeah, that's what I'm
how
saying.
you are as a friend, right? It's
That's
like
what
how
I'm
you
saying.
are. Yeah, so that doesn't have to start and end at your physical appearance or your, all these other things that we were talking about happiness.
It's a lot of things. I'm not saying it's just physical appearance. It's a lot of things. It's physical appearance.
Yeah, and I
Being.
agree.
Yeah. So it's a
It's a
lot of
it's
things.
a multifaceted thing. So again, it's like so we came from that whole like, well, if you were jacked and this or that, would you be happier? And again, it's like, well, those aren't necessarily the markers.
It's just that they're more likely, because if you are in shape, right? Let's say you get in shape. At least it tells you, I did something to get in shape. I worked my ass off. It means that I can do it in other areas. You've proven to yourself through your own actions that you can be better at one area. Then you can be better at other areas. And eventually you build yourself to be really good at a lot of areas. And people will like you more. Women will like you more as a guy. You will be able to acquire more friends, more people that are on your same wavelength or whatever the people call it these days.
Well, I mean, if
You'll attract the people that you want to attract. A lot of the reasons why we have bad friends is because, realistically speaking, we don't have a lot of options when we are in a
yes,
really
right.
bad
So
place.
so again, we can agree. I think we're getting a little bit far away from the premise, but like we can agree that loneliness is bad and that people should have friends, right?
Yeah,
Um,
good friends,
good friends,
But
good
the only
friends,
way for
good friends who don't change if your physical appearance change, right? Because you said people would like you less or respect you less if you weren't in shape. And
but
to me,
it's the
that's sad.
choice. The more you build yourself up, the more options open up for you to connect with people,
Being a
for you
better
to make
person
friends.
is incredibly valuable, yes, but
Yes,
that's in many ways, right? Again, I think
but
that's
but
where we can,
but when you say a better person, I think you're referring, let's say, to being nice.
yeah.
And
Is that
people
not a better
sometimes,
quality? Is that not a good
I
quality?
absolutely agree with you, but a lot of people kind of disconnect the fact that you can be nice and you can be jacked and you can be rich and you can be successful and you can be a good painter and you can be a good farmer. Why do people assume, the first thing that we say, oh, he's jacked, he's a meathead, he's stupid, or like what we say, like
Well,
the
yeah. I mean,
stereotype for girls.
I would disagree with that statement. I think you can be all those things, and you can also cry. Is that all I would say? You can be all those things, and also be someone who cries. Like I don't see the conflict. That's all I'm getting at. I don't disagree that wanting to be more in shape, more healthy. These are like things that I value a lot in my life. Like I really value right now wanting to be more healthy, live a healthier life. I just don't think any of those are at odds with also feeling the ability to cry or express your emotions.
I'm saying that it's much more likely if the person that has been successful, instead of crying about things, he actually went and did something to build up his own character, and that's why he is successful, because he chose to do something a productive for himself and other people action instead of sitting on his bed crying. That is my point. Every time he said, he wired his brain. Every time I'm sad, let's get some work done. Let's build up my friendship, my business, my physical shape, instead of sitting in your bed crying. That could just, like, as I said, as a tumor, grow, and eventually you'll just be sad all the time, and you feel like there's no way out of it because you don't take action in a way that is going to productively benefit your life. And if you benefit your own life, you benefit other people's life, and that also externally makes you happy.
Okay, I think we've kind of gotten to the roots of our different stances, right? I think again, if I was to try and summarize it, correct me if I'm wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's you're very goal and results oriented, right? You're kind of like take action to make your life better at all times, right? Essentially,
Yes.
it's kind of what you're getting at. It's like you're sad, take action to make your life better.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that a person needs to always be thinking about productivity and results to make your life better. Like your life can be better simply from emotional and psychological wellness, which can come through simply the ability to express yourself honestly and create a support group of people around you who allow you to do so without fear of judgment, right? Like that's what I would get at. And I would say that, like, for me, that's why part of that is the expression of an emotion or an action like crying, which then allows you to deal with your emotions because it's a catharsis, and is not exclusionary to then going to the gym or buying your mother flowers or whatever the other things is. So that's, I think, where perhaps our disagreement lies.
I think we spoke about this topic a lot. We're just gonna go back to the same talking points. I would like to ask you a question. Let's say you have a friend who feels really, really sad. Right? You see him kind of crying on his bed. Would you tell him keep staying in bed, or would you say, hey, bro, let's go for a walk?
I would say to him, what's wrong? And I try to understand what's going on.
Yeah, of course. I'm saying that, yeah, you ask him what's wrong. But would you tell him, let's keep playing in your bed, talk to me, or let's go for a walk, let's talk about things?
I would try to understand why they're sad. Like, I don't think there's a default. I don't think there's a default answer is what I'm saying. If they were like, hey, I'm really sad and I just want to like be alone for a while, or I just want to sit here and cry for a while, or I just want to sit here and watch a movie that makes me feel good, I would be there for them. And I wouldn't necessarily try to force them into action when that's not necessarily what they want in that moment of time. They may want to just chill out, and that's okay.
But would you say that sometimes what you want is not beneficial for you? Would you say that if I want to punch somebody in the face when I'm angry, would you tell me do what you want, or would you say no?
Well,
okay.
Yes, but I don't think they're not asking me to punch someone. They're just saying they want to be like alone for a bit, or just be sad for a bit, and that's okay. Like for me, that's okay. If they're like, I don't have to be their like decider of life that has to tell them how to live a better life.
No, I'm just asking you as a friend. Like
sure.
You either leave him to cry. You ask him, hey, I see that you're sad. You either just sit on the bed and try to talk to him while he's sobbing on his bed and he's like inside his headspace and the whole pillows are with tears and everything is just, all of the tissue is around, or okay, let's go for a walk, let's talk about things. That's the question. I think you're kind of
because you're forcing me into an extreme, right? You're trying to force me into a very clear binary.
I'm asking a simple question because you can give very specific answers, but if we go with specific answers,
you provided me with two options that are both undesirable.
That's why I'm asking it as a hypothetical. I'm just asking, what of these two options would you do? That's my question.
It would really depend on my friend. I don't have a default. That's what I'm saying. I don't have a default in life. Awkward. I don't have I would try and get. I guess you're saying I would want to get them to walk. I would simply.
I know that I would get them to walk.
So my approach would simply be, let me talk to my friend. What do they want? I'm not going to decide for them. Perhaps again, this is another difference. I'm not going to decide for them what I think is best for them, unless I feel like they've been particularly destructive in their life. If I had a friend who I felt was doing particularly destructive things, at some point I may want to intervene and have a conversation with them and say, hey man, the things you've been doing are a little bit destructive. Which is why I reached out to you, right? I was like, I wasn't unhappy with your tweet and I felt like that was a destructive tweet. So I reached out to you and I said, hey man, I'm not sure this is cool.
But where would you draw the line? That's my question. Where do you draw the line? So you said you can leave him in his bed to keep crying, but how do you know that he's not gonna harm himself? Would it,
Hopefully I know my friend. Hopefully I know my friend.
We all yeah, but a lot of people who end up doing that, a lot of people around them, then they're good friends. So I never saw that coming. I just didn't see it. Right? That's what they say.
Yeah, but
you can think you know your friend, but you never know. But
I don't know.
Never know.
But I don't know if taking him for a walk is going to fix that.
But it's more likely for him to be in a better headspace to kind of talk about. If you want him to talk about his feelings, sure. I'm not saying don't talk about your feelings. Sure, whatever. You can talk about your feelings. You have to understand at least why you're sad, so you can fix it. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, agreed, 100%.
But I'm saying that instead of leaving him alone, that he could possibly could go wrong. You know your friend, and you don't think something's gonna go wrong, but there's a possibility. Right? And that's what I'm always hinting at. There's the possibility.
So if there was a possibility that I was worried what my friend would do to themselves, I would stay with them. Simply. But I don't necessarily I don't have to force productivity on them. And that's the difference. I don't have to force them to go for a walk.
But you can't know. That's what I'm saying. You can't know for sure. You can't know for sure if they decide to harm themselves or not. You can't.
Yeah, but I can't know if making them go for a walk and then when I leave they won't, like, I don't know either.
Yeah, but at the very least, you know that at that moment where they felt very, very sad, you were with them just walking, and you know that they did
It might
something to
honestly,
take
the
off
the
sadness.
walking might make them feel worse. Honestly, like the walking might, they might not just want to walk right now, and that's okay, man. Like I just disagree with you there. I just think it's
Draw
okay.
something, watch a show. Doesn't matter. It's just walking is just an
Yeah,
example.
so
You
again,
get the
it's,
point.
yeah, but then there you go. Then that's okay. That's like expressing and feeling the emotion. If they wanted to watch a show, I'm
Yeah,
okay with
sure.
that.
But yeah,
Maybe
okay.
I just need to. Maybe I just want to hug them for a bit.
But I would say that it's more productive than crying. Any action. So as I said, you asked. There's not always there's not always good action. I'm saying, but there's the worst one. I think we can agree. What is the worst one, right? I think we can all agree
Yeah,
that
yeah,
harming
but
yourself is the
again, I
worst thing.
don't. Again, I don't think the crying is bad. Like, this is why again I don't think crying is an unproductive action. I think it is productive in the sense that it may not force a tangible benefit of they're richer or more in shape, but I
Yeah.
just think that they have better expressed their emotion and they are better. Uh, yeah, like they've just released the catharsis of the thing that was upsetting them, and people feel better at the end of it. That in and of itself is a happy feeling.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, but you have to think logically. What is the most likely thing to make him feel less sad? At the end of the day, would you know exactly what it is? Would you know the best solution? No, but the worst solution. You want to avoid the worst solution, so you're gonna start coming up with.
So, yeah, I just don't think I agree with your likely. That's it. I think I don't agree with what you say. I think the most likely thing would be this. I don't agree. I don't think
No,
that is the most likely benefit would be going
what is,
like doing
what
something
is
productive.
not the most? I said more likely.
Okay, more
More
likely.
likely.
Even the more likely. I don't see it that way. I don't think
Okay,
it's more likely that
so this is like where we disagree. We're never gonna,
yes.
there's
Yeah, no,
no
there's no. Yeah, that's where our
middle
impasse
ground.
lies. You think it's more likely that it would help them to do this, which I'm glad that you're trying to help your friend. I totally respect that, and I hope that
Yeah.
that is correct. But like for me, I don't think that that's the case. I think that it could be more likely that they just need a good cry, and that's okay with me.
Okay. Okay. At the end of the day, from my experience, at the end of the day, life is the best teacher. Life is the
Sure.
best teacher, right? And I mean, I can say my opinions, you can say your opinions, but at the end of the day, there's a person, there's a person who, well, I mean, when people tell me a lot of things, oh, you're insecure, you're blah blah blah, you are, your mom needs to hug you. My life is good, man. Like I don't know, like what's up, like with these people, I don't know them, right? But my life is good. You can say all you want, but I know for a fact my life is good. I feel good. I feel like I have good relationship with my family, my friends. My finances are good. I'm in shape. I train. I do that. I'm good. I'm good. It doesn't matter what you say on the internet. It doesn't really bother me. But I'm gonna go back to another, like, a more funny point
Sure.
that kind of correlates with my tweet. I talked about lack of emotional control. What is so my friend just tells me, like a good friend of mine, he tells me, you know what, Danny, like they see your tweet and they just have to comment. They see it and they have to comment. They must comment. And I'm very happy with, as I said, I like to talk. I like to discuss things. I like to talk. And when somebody says their opinion, I think you're wrong because this, and this. You say, oh, it releases stress. By the okay, that's like cool. That's meaningful conversation. You're a very respectful person. Whoever wrote that, but they're awkward. You're retarded. You're stupid. It shows lack of emotional control. He cannot stop himself from typing on the keyboard, damn stupid. And it's just kind of funny because I never do that. I never flamed anybody. I never go in game and just tell people they're stupid or retarded. I never go on Twitter. I disagreed with your main point. I didn't say SVB, you're stupid. I hate you. Your brain works. No, I mean I respect you as a person. I respect your opinion. Doesn't make you less of a person than me. For me, in my eyes. But I didn't flame you. I just disagreed. I said, in my opinion, this is what I think. But a lot of these people, you're a retard awkward. Shows lack of
Well, I
emotional
mean,
control.
clearly, I think we can agree. I find this. I told you earlier. I went on my break because I find the internet a very difficult place to be, and it's very stupid when people just resort to name calling or just telling you to, KYS or whatever it is. 100%, I agree that that's not good. Nobody should be doing that.
But we could. Okay.
But could you not make the same argument, turn it around to you and say, you felt the need to comment under my tweet? right? You
Yeah,
felt
I
the
mean,
need to.
no, I didn't feel the need. I would say, he's a person I respect. Let's have a meaningful conversation. I mean, I wrote down a tweet. I expected you to write down back to me, and we would
Sure, yeah.
have basically close to the same conversation we're having right now. At the end of the day, we're sitting here talking, and that's great. I didn't say you're retarded. You didn't call me stupid, right?
No.
But so it's not really an emotional response. More like, hey, let's have a discussion. I think we can help ourselves think. We can help other people think as well. Maybe we can change my mind. Maybe I can change your mind for like a bit to a better direction for both of us, possibly. But a lot of these people, hey, I mean, you're stupid, awkward. Your mama didn't hug you. But that's kind of funny because people who are in emotional control for the most part, and you could say, by the way, they're expressing their emotions. But you can see how it can turn out.
Well, but again, we both agreed that there are ways to express your emotions that are healthy and unhealthy, right? So I think
Absolutely, but it's
yes,
your choice. It's your choice how you do that. It's your choice.
yeah, and again, I think yelling at someone is unproductive, but I think crying to yourself would be fine. Like I don't see how that's destructive. Like those, if your tweet really upset someone and they feel like they felt like crying for a bit, that's also okay with me.
I'm not saying it's destructive 100% of the time. I'm saying that it could be a possibility to lean down to a destructive path. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that.
But literally any emotion could be that, could it not? Literally any emotion could potentially become destructive.
But it's a likelihood. It's just a likelihood. It's more likely for you to harm. It's more likely for you to harm yourself when you're sad and not harm yourself when you're grateful or something.
Again,
It's
don't.
just like ability.
Yeah,
that's
but the sadness is not necessarily related to crying, right? Like, yeah, if you're sad, you may be unhappy, but that's not necessarily because you cried.
But that's because we don't have any other option we cannot show gratitude another way. We can't. Our bodies, like, we don't have. When we're happy, we smile. When we're sad, we have this face. But when we're grateful, we don't really have an expression. So we usually use what we have, which is usually crying. People who are grateful usually cry. When somebody gets you flowers, you're like gonna tear up a bit, right? And when somebody buys you a puppy, you're gonna tear up a bit.
Well, that's showing to me is a clear biological, like clearly biologically, we cry for many reasons, and it's like the body's way of responding to a thing, which is totally fair in my book, right?
Yeah,
I think let's kind of. I want to go more into like the Twitter aspect of this because I think that's very interesting as well. Because you've made some tweets in general that have kind of rippled some ponds.
Like, and people say that I backtrack. I don't backtrack. I mean what I said. I'm gonna stand by what I say. It doesn't matter what people on the internet don't affect me. Really,
okay.
Genuinely.
Yeah, good. In that case, then my question is kind of like, yeah, well, why do you sometimes tweet these rather controversial things? Like, so, I mean, controversial in my book, maybe they're not controversial in your book, but like, the other time when you tweeted about long distance relationships, right? And how they're like, there's nothing productive that can come from a long distance relationship. Like, why tweet that?
Well, at the end of the day, I'm just sharing my opinion, right? Sharing my opinion. I mean, if nobody wants to see my opinion, there's the block option. But yet people still do. They don't block me.
But there must be like there must be a motivation beyond just like you're not just sharing your opinion into the ether and like, okay, I just threw it out. Like there must be some.
I do. I generally do.
You just like to throw it out there.
And the reason why I share my opinions is because, well, I didn't want to get to this, right? Because it just kind of seemed like a subtle flex. But I get messages like every day. People message me, both women and men, by the way, say how I help them. I mean, they got out of shape and now they're in shape, or they lost their job and they just kind of felt helpless. And through my videos or through my coaching or just by helping them in game, it just helped them build up the confidence to do other things in their life, right? So just one person who messaged me that, it's good enough for me to share my opinion in a way where it's gonna make people feel thankful for their lives, about the decisions they make, or just kind of reality check. Well, maybe what he's saying is true. Possibly. Maybe what he's saying is bullcrap. It's possible, right? But you don't have to listen to me. I'm not saying you should listen to me. You can listen to whoever you want.
So then the real answer is that you share your opinion in the hopes that it will resonate with someone or change their mind. Of course.
Or help them, really, genuinely. Right. I genuinely want to help people. People say, you do these unranked GMs yeah, I mean, sure, I get money from my unranked GMs, but I also do other things that help people. It's not... If the videos didn't pay, I would still make them.
Right.
I would still make them. And yeah. If I did it for money, I could just do 10 videos a day. Why don't I just, for me, in ranked gym, I do it in half a day. There's like 6 hours I finish. I could possibly do like 3, in one day. But why do I release them not very often? So it's just like kind of, if people think logically, I genuinely want to help people.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I respect that a lot about you, that you do genuinely want to help other people be better. So that's kind of what I was getting at. Right? I was like, why did you make this tweet? Well, it's because you're trying to help people, right? In your perspective, when you make a tweet like, well, long distance relationships are unproductive, it's because you feel like that's something people are doing that is
Yeah.
not productive, and you're hoping that maybe they'll read this tweet and reconsider.
It's basic. I'm not saying I'm not always looking at it from not a productive way. I'm just
Right.
saying that it could potentially be very harmful to your life. It could be make you waste your time. It could make you feel very, very bad about yourself when it's not going to work out, because the likelihood statistically it's that it's not going to work out, right? So you have to really think: is it what I want to do, or am I doing it because I just don't have any other option?
Okay. Yeah. No, I agree that I get that. But then, do you understand why people are upset when they read that, when
Of
they
course.
when they are like living that situation, or are that way?
Of course, but I don't think that I don't think it doesn't matter what I say. People are gonna be upset at it. It doesn't matter what I say. I mean, you could say the most obvious things. A crocodile is stronger than a cat, and some guy will explain to you why you're stupid and a cat is stronger than a crocodile. But that's the
Sure.
nature of the internet, right?
Yeah. But obviously there are more controversial statements than others, right? It's like, yeah, I mean, if you said crocodile's stronger than a cat, most people would agree with you, and I'm sure they would. Yeah, they're like that. Someone would be like, well, actually, etc., etc.
Yeah,
But if you were to say like the Earth is flat, well, now you're gonna get more disagreement, right?
yeah.
So you kind of, because you must have known you were gonna piss people off with that tweet. Like you surely knew.
I don't do it to piss people off. If that's the question, it's not that I
No, I'm
said
not
what.
saying did you do it to piss people off. I'm just thinking like you did it despite knowing people would like you would upset people, and that's okay with you seemingly.
I'm not a stupid person. I know exactly what backlash I'm gonna get every time that I tweet. I know, and I understand. But the reason why I do it also because it doesn't bother me. I don't care about what people say, and that's why it's not. I don't have the hesitance. Should I tweet this? Well, what will people think? What will people say? Is it going? Are they going to cancel me? Is it going to ruin my business? I just tweet my opinion. Whoever wants to resonate, good. That's my audience. At the end of the day, and I'm
Yeah,
I'm helping my audience. That's I truly believe that people who watch me, I help them, and I'm trying the best of my ability to help them as well.
yeah, and I understand that. I think my as your friend, what I would say is that you should maybe consider sometimes that what you're saying is gonna hurt people as well. As like it may help people, but it might hurt people too, and not always in a positive. It's gonna motivate them to be better people way. Just
Fair.
genuinely gonna make them feel invalidated, right? So if we take the long distance relationships are toxic, right? A lot
But
of people have long distance relationships that have worked very happily, and like
sure.
you're like upsetting them because you're trying to like say they shouldn't exist almost in a way, right? And in the same way, when we have this discussion about like,
When did I say that? I never said that. It's not even.
well, if
You would say I implied it. I didn't imply it. As much as people want to cry, they can cry. I don't care. They can cry. I don't care. Genuinely, if I see a person crying, I'm gonna stop crying. No, I
well,
don't
but
know
you're
you.
saying that
Cry.
it's like an unhealthy attitude. Like you're saying like people shouldn't do it.
That's why I
So it's
also
like
said my opinion, right? And I'm trying to base my opinion the best of my abilities. That's
true,
all.
true, and that's fair. I think maybe you want to consider other people's perspectives a bit more though, right? Like it's like you can say I don't care what people say, but at the same time you are trying to reach to people and better their lives, right? You're trying to like come at a
Yeah.
place of like I'm sharing my valuable life lessons in a way that I think will help other people come to a better state of life.
Yeah.
But to do that, I think you've got to also consider their states of life, and that their POV might just be different, and like bake that into your opinion as well, right? It's like you should be cognizant that like you might just like, for example, do you think that there are times that a long distance relationship is good? Like it's clearly worked for some people.
Yeah, it worked for some people. Would I advise? Okay, well, I can say that some people. Let me try to think of the best example that I can. I don't want to sound ridiculous, but let's say there is a person who was swimming right in a crocodile-filled lake, and he survived. He managed to cross the lake. Would I still advise people to swim in that lake? The answer is no. So are you asking me? So you're asking me, right? Do you like some relationship worked out? Good, great, happy for them, really happy. Would I advise people to do it? No, no. I can list a lot of reasons, but not even the it's not the topic. But what you're saying, isn't it a little bit subjective? Because I can say the same to you. I can say, don't you think that what you're saying could possibly be harmful on people on the internet? Because your answer would probably be no, right? My answer is
My answer would be that I try to consider, whenever I say something publicly, I try to consider how it may be interpreted and try to at least put it in a way that I can think is reasonable, not in a way that I think might deliberately upset people. Right? I think that's the difference.
Okay, so but I can say that what you are typing is deliberately upsetting people, and now we're getting into a very subjective line where what I think
it is. Of course, it's subjective. Of course, it's subjective. I'm just trying to understand if because I'm not talking. The difference is I'm not talking in absolute, right? Yeah. I said it's okay for people to cry. It's not the same as there's nothing productive in long distance relations, right? Can you see the difference of the use of an absolute versus a statement?
So you're basically getting to the point that you just don't like how I phrase things.
I think sometimes you phrase things because I know you and I know you've got a good heart, right?
Yeah.
So when I see people on the internet thinking that Awkward is just deliberately bait tweeting to deliberately cause people to hate him, I feel like, wow, I wish he would phrase things better so that at least if he has a different POV, it comes across more reasonably rather than just being potentially hateful.
There's a saying that says, right? It's not, I didn't invent the saying, but you can lead the horse to the water, but you cannot force it to drink. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter how I say what I say, it's not going to affect people. But I know that there are people, my target audience, the people that truly want my advice or truly want to better themselves. My advice leans to them. People who are not interested, it's okay. They can block me. They can mute. They can do whatever they want. At the end of the day, I phrase it for specific people. I don't phrase it for everybody. I phrase it in a way to the people that are the horses that want to drink the water, not the horses that don't want to drink the water.
Right, but there are other horses nearby as you're yelling, right? It's like there are spaces to talk to your horses versus.
But they don't have to be there, right? They can block.
Well, they can block, but you've already upset them by the time they've blocked, and you don't have to.
So it goes back to another point of why is some opinion on the internet from a guy you don't even know upsetting you so much. I think that it's a kind of, you can search within. That's how you said it. What's the word?
Introspection.
Yeah. Well, why is a guy random on the
internet? Because the guy has a platform, right? Because the guy has.
But I can say about you. You have a platform. You're saying things that could bother me, but I'm not sitting there emotional.
Right, but like I said, if I say something, I want to make sure that I'm trying to be considerate and not dealing in absolutes, right? Like I said, I'm not trying to potentially invalidate someone's existence by saying that they just can't do this. In fact, I'm saying the opposite. I'm saying you guys should be free to do more things.
So again, we go back to the same thing. So why is it bothering people that it works for them? Like, why am I invalidating people that it works for them? It's like me, let's say you are in shape, great shape, amazing shape, you're jacked, and I come and say you're fat. Why does it bother you?
Well, it's not nice though, is it?
Sure, okay, maybe, but is it true?
It's subjective though. Like, surely you understand that nobody knows objectively, I'm handsome and really good looking. Someone on the street can be like, you're ugly, and it bothers you.
But if it
so
bothers
why
you,
go up and say, fuck you, you're ugly?
But if it bothers you, that's the question. If it bothers you, why does it bother you? Why again?
Because we're human beings, man. Other weird, we're biologically, evolutionarily trained to seek the approval of our tribes, right? That's how our human society was formed by cooperation, and we're supposed to gain the approval of the rest of our tribes. So we're conditioned to want validation from our peers.
Absolutely.
Right?
How do we do that? Through achieving things. It could be a former.
Yeah, but we're generally, you're talking the end goal. General idea is we need the approval of other people. So if someone else tells us, and so we often use other people to inform our own opinions of ourselves, right? If to give your example, other people made you feel out of shape, and now they make you feel in shape. It wasn't that It was clearly some impetus from other people that made you feel like you weren't in a good shape. In the same
No,
way,
I know it myself. That's the whole. I knew it
but
myself.
we're not born in a vacuum. Like there's been eras of humanity when being fat is desirable, right? Like in the medieval period, being what we now consider obese would be considered a indicator of good upbringing, right? So clearly we use others to gauge our opinions of ourselves.
Yeah,
So why
I agree with that.
why go out and seek to piss people off or upset their own opinions, or like for themselves? Like why invalidate their own experiences? Right, is what I'm saying.
Because again, I said it doesn't matter how I phrase things. You can minimize the. You can say I can try to minimize damage, but how do I know it actually minimized damage? How do I know there's no group on the other side that's more upset by the things that I say? You know, there's really no good way out of it. Doesn't matter what you tweet. There's no good way out of it. People will hate you. People will dislike you. You experience toxicity on the internet, right? You're correct. You said you experience
100%.
And I can say objectively, watching you, I genuinely cannot understand why people would dislike you. Genuinely, you're not doing anything you're not doing anything harmful to other people. You're not acting in a negative way. You're not throwing shade at anybody. I think genuinely a very nice person. Yet people still were toxic to the point that you were like, okay, I have to take a break. So you can say I should change maybe, but why?
So for me, what I'm getting at is not about myself, because as you said, you're already unbothered by how people feel. What I'm saying is for other people who see the impact of what you say is what it's not about actually you, because I think clearly you're very well adjusted in that sense. You're not bothered at all when people say shit. It's that I think you're bothering people when you don't need to. Like you can still express those expressions that you want to say in a manner that doesn't have to upset as many people as it does. It can still benefit the people that you want it to benefit, but it doesn't have to upset other people too for no reason.
Possibly, but then I can possibly. Yeah, I'm not saying you're wrong. Possibly, but then I would be inauthentic. I just type out what I think. It's not that I'm just sitting there. Okay, how should I phrase it? No, I just like my brain works, thoughts, boom, typing it out.
True, but as we've said, like self-improvement, at least I believe self-improvement is a never-ending process, right? Like every single day, I'm trying to be a better person than I was yesterday, and that includes how I treat other people, right? So you can argue that there's like an authentic self, but also you change yourself a lot. You've changed who you were from now to what you were 10 years ago.
Maybe
right?
in 10 years, I'm going to look at my tweets. I'm going to say they're absolutely disgraceful. Maybe, right? But I'm trying to do the best that I can today, right? Because if you
I appreciate that. I appreciate you being here. That shows a willingness to at least engage in these ideas and sort of open to another perspective, which I appreciate a lot. And I'm thankful for you to giving me your time and sort of having this. All I'm saying is, as your friend, I think you give people the impression that you're hateful when you're not trying to be.
Okay, but again, it's subjective, right? Because I can say
it's subjective, but like looking at your tweet, you have 130 likes and 354 quote tweets and like just thousands of people saying you're a piece of shit, right?
Sure, okay.
And that's objective, right? Like we can say, I know Twitter is not objective, but clearly you pissed people off.
Okay, absolutely. Yeah, sure. I might have pissed people off, but if I phrase it down in a different way, I could have pissed different people off. But I'm doing the best that I can. I type out the things to the best of my ability. I'm not gonna sit for an hour thinking, how should I type this? Because that's not who I am. I'm not gonna waste an hour typing and trying to cater myself to people that I don't even know. They're not my audience. I know they're not gonna listen to what I say. I know that I'm not gonna impact their lives in any way, shape, or form. And ironically, if I don't impact their lives positively, why would I even impact their lives negatively? Like, it's their choice to block me or not see me. But again, it ties to lack of emotional control. And again, you have to kind of look within. Why am I bothered? If I am living in a healthy, long-distance relationship and I feel great, why is a guy that says that bothers me so much? It really shows an issue within. It's not an issue with me. Why is that an issue with me?
I mean, I think it's a pretty understandable emotion if you're kind of living a certain way and someone comes along and says you shouldn't exist, essentially, right? It's like if someone came along and was like, your people like you awkward should just not exist, you'd be upset. I mean, you perhaps individually might not be, but you can understand how other people might be might be upset by that, right? You can surely understand that other people
Po-
might be upset.
Possibly, but it's impossible to not harm somebody's feeling. And at the end of the day, I cannot
It's
control how
yeah, okay,
people.
okay. Yeah, it's impossible to not harm somebody's feelings, but it's possible to harm less feelings than maximum all the time.
Maybe it's like for possible, right? I'm just doing the best that I can. I'm just doing the best that I can. That's all I'm
Well,
saying.
no, you're not. You're not. Actually, I will pull you up on this point. You're not doing the best you can because you said you don't give a second thought to your tweets. Give
Right.
them a second thought is what I'm saying. Like, chill out for a
Sure.
sec and give it a second thought, just so that you're not putting it in the most hurtful way possible.
Okay, so I can possibly do that, but I have other things going on in my life. Like when I'm usually when I type my tweets, I'm not sitting at my PC. I'm just like I'm taking a toilet break at the gym or something, right?
Sure.
Or I'm just typing things out, and that's it. Just boom, putting the phone aside, and that's it. Sometimes I'll read the comments, sometimes I don't. Actually, the blue check mark actually filters out a lot of the comments that it's not really necessary to read anyways. But if I say something, right, I expect the people that are mutuals of mine and people like you to comment. I disagree with that. Cool. Let's have a meaningful conversation. That's how I grow through meaningful conversations. I don't grow from people around me telling me, yes, you're right, awkward. Yes, you're right, awkward. I constantly also change everything that I do and trying to do it better. But at the end of the day, there's so much. I mean, trying my best, but I can't expect to be perfect. Try my best. You say you're not trying your best, but I do.
I
You say
mean,
you
you said yourself you don't. That's why I said it, because you said yourself, and you've said again. You're like,
no. I'm trying my best to my life circumstances today. In the future, maybe I'll have more room open up for me to sit and look at the tweet and rephrase it differently. Possibly, maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe
maybe.
I'll think in the future. Maybe in a year from now, I think that
Well,
exactly the way that I'm phrasing it is better.
when you see something like this, when you see, like I said, like I cited, like this many people clearly vehemently disagreeing with you, does that not give you pause in any way? Does that not make you think like, maybe I did say this wrong? Maybe I did say this badly?
Yes, but again, it's just doing the best that I can. I possibly say, okay, how can I do better?
So does that make you then feel like, okay, what can I do better? What is if you're like, oh, I want to do better, then is there anything you take away to be like, oh, I could have done that better?
Well, possibly, yeah. But my better might not necessarily be your better. That's the point that I'm making.
So what is your like? Well, what is it? You say possibly. Is that like? Is there a thing that you? Is there a
But
conclusion you've gotten from this or not?
but right now I cannot give you a practice because I don't know. I have to
Okay.
type it out and I'll give you okay. Am I happy with that? Cool, I'm happy with that. But just because I'm happy with that could be make you upset. But because it makes you, let's say it makes you happy, could make other people upset. But I cannot cater
Again,
to
yeah,
everybody.
we agree on the fundamental premise that like
Yeah.
someone will always be pissed off. But again, it's like, you want to help people. You're not going to help people by pissing them off. And if you surely want to help as many people as you can, and to do so,
Yeah,
you need to
absolutely.
so do so. You need to reach those people, right? You need to like not make them think you're just an asshole trying to get like Twitter money from engagements, right?
I actually don't get free money for engagement because that program doesn't even work in my country. So I don't get
Right.
any money
So,
from
but
that.
yeah, but people, you can see how people would believe that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, they can believe what they want. I don't care. That's the whole point. I don't care. I mean, I care
You
about
do
people.
care because you want to help people. So you do
Yeah,
care.
I care about the feelings of people who want to be helped. You cannot save people who don't want to be saved. That's the whole point. I don't care about the people who don't want to be saved. I can't force them, right? As I said, you cannot
And
you
what?
can bring the force.
Yeah. Okay. And what about yourself though? Like, are there areas from my opinion, I'm like,
Yeah,
as your friend, like, I've reached out to you in areas that I feel inadequate, right? I've like,
yeah.
awkward. I'm just not good at this hero. I'm not as good as Overwatch as you. Like, as lot I can do to improve. Help me
Mhm.
out. So as your friend, I look at this area and I feel like you could stand to improve here. Like, do you feel that ever? Like, do you feel like, oh man, like this is an
I
area I should
I
think about?
I think how I can improve every single day. That's how
Mm.
I manage. That's how I managed to get to the level I am right now. In 10 years, I hopefully I'm not even saying hopefully like lying. I know for a fact that I'm gonna keep working hard, keep doing my thing, and eventually in 10 years I'll be better than I am today. Will I cringe at me 10 years back? Possibly, sure. I think
But it
that
doesn't have to
very
be 10
likely.
years. But it doesn't have to be 10 years. Is what I'm saying. It can be today.
But the whole point, I'm trying my best today. That's what I'm saying. I
And I
mean,
appreciate that.
I can. I know in the future I will. In the future I will. But for today, I'm doing the best that I can. As much as you 10 years ago, you did the best you can. You can maybe in retrospect say, SVB, 10 years ago, you could have done this, and this better. But everybody's like a smart in hindsight, right? But I'd like to believe that we're all trying our best today. I'd like to believe that. I know that we don't. I know for a fact that we don't. Like people around us all the time. But I genuinely do believe that I'm trying the best that I can every single day. I do.
And I respect that and I appreciate that.
And in 10 years, possibly I can say, you know what? The best that you did back then, it's like saying to a goal person, you're not doing the best that you can, even though he's practicing really hard and he's still gold. But, maybe that's his best. And his best is just to go from gold to plat. And then when in 10 years he'll be GM and he'll be like, well, did I try my best? Yeah, I did try my best. Yeah, but it takes time to rank up in video games in real life. It takes time.
For sure, but which is exactly why I'm trying to encourage you as your friend to think a little bit, to spend a little bit more on these kind of things, right? To like, I totally respect and I admire the unbothered energy you bring to like your approach to like hate, right? It's like I admire that, right? It's respectful to be like, or it's respectable to be like, I don't give a shit what people say about me. Mm-hmm. But if you do genuinely want to help people, you need to be able to not piss so many of them off and not make them feel hurt, because you can't help people you have hurt, right? You can't help anyone, even if you believe that you're saving people. And in this situation, I think you're wrong. I think you're actually hurting people, not saving people. But
that's subjective
that's subjective. That's of course subjective. But what isn't subjective is that clearly you pissed people off, and you generally piss people off with the way you phrase these things. That's, I think, clearly objective. We can see that by the reaction that people have given. So if you want to help people, you need to not do that.
I see what you're saying, SVB. I'm saying that, in my opinion, I'm trying the best that I can to help the people as much as I can. And I know that people are not going to like some of the things that I say. You say, there are more people that can like what you say. Well, yeah, that's a work in progress, right? How can more people relate and like what I say? And it's a work in progress every day.
I appreciate that, dude. No, that's all I got to say. Like, I can't sit here and force you to like, nor do I want to force you to be someone you don't want to be or don't feel comfortable being. You, like you said, you have to be authentic. Yeah, separate to the whole men crying discussion, I just kind of wanted to have a talk to you about that, because again, that's something that like I've seen for a while. People see your tweets and they think that you're just deliberately trying to get people angry, and I don't want that for you as your friend, right? Speaking of the whole, like, what would you do if your friend is sad? Well, when I see that my friend is like being thought of as a hateful asshole, I'd prefer that he isn't viewed that way, and I hope he doesn't say things that are, understandable as hateful. Like, I can understand why people would see your tweet and think that you're just being hateful for no reason.
Yeah, well, we discussed about this. Like, it's subjective, because I can say that the things that you say, for example, or somebody says are hateful, right? But that there's no. I mean, we can try to talk, and that's why we have meaningful conversation. I don't call you a retard. I don't call you stupid. You don't call me that way. We try to explain your point. I try to explain my point. That's the best that we can do, right? That's the best we can. You cannot force me. I cannot force you. I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and feel frustrated. Oh my God, how can I make SVB think like me? No, I don't. You live your own life. You live your own truth, and I'd hope for you, like for me, for you as a friend, I'd hope that you live to your own truth and you don't bend your back backwards for other people. And it doesn't matter if people will dislike what you have to say. It doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, I can respect that you live your own truth. If your own truth is being more emotional and it's being being nice and people don't like it, I don't give a fuck. Just because I disagree with the fact that you are possibly more emotional than I would like myself to be, I don't hold that against you. At least I can say I respect that guy for at least living his own truth.
And yeah, I respect that. I just want to say, like, yeah, I would ask you don't use the word R word in that sense. I prefer, because it's upsetting to people. It's a slur, and it's not nice.
It's what I see on Twitter the most. That's what I'm saying. That's
sure.
The first thing pops.
Sure. But yeah, don't like it's. Yes, avoid saying that, please.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I want to live my truth. Like you said, I want to be myself and be unbothered, but I also don't want to hurt people, right? So that's where I come from. I want to, I think you're the same. You want to be, spread as much goodness as you can, spread as much happiness as you can. And that is very much oppositional to just hurting people for no reason. For example, why of like, I wouldn't use a slur because like, I don't want anyone to feel triggered by it, right? To feel like the negative emotions that a word like that carries, right? So in that same regard, that's why I come from the POV of like, I know some things I say will piss people off, right? Especially when it comes to like Overwatch. I have opinions on Overwatch that will piss people off. Yeah. But that's like a business of like Overwatch. And then there's like the domain of like how someone lives their life. Mm-hmm. And I try not to invalidate the way someone lives their life, right? Like I might try and encourage them to be different. The way I talked about, I think men should be open to cry, but I'm not going to try to invalidate the way they currently live because that's hateful, that's hurtful, right? So that's the perspective I come from.
Yeah, I mean, I cannot choose who's gonna be offended and who's not at the end of the day. As I said, I'm trying my best, but I'm not gonna bend over backwards just to possibly not upset some people. No, I'm just gonna live my truth. I'm gonna say my truth. People who don't want to listen, there's the block option. And funny enough, even though there's the block option, people call me hate names and they don't like me. Yet they still reappear on every tweet that I make somehow. So if they don't like it enough, why don't they just cut the toxicity from their lives? And I think that cutting the toxicity from their lives is kind of in my opinion, it's a good solution, but I think it's a band-aid solution. A lot of people, like especially in Overwatch, they come up to me and say, I cannot deal with people flaming me, right? And they say that like people flaming, it really gets to me. I mean, I say them two options. I think the number one, very practical option, commute, and then you don't even have to deal with it, right? But I think the second option will be better, which is to build a little bit of thicker skin. And I think that what he said, that some toxicity got to you, I'd like to believe that after that you grew to be stronger mentally and things will affect you a little bit less, hopefully, for the goodness of yourself specifically. I mean, I don't care about other people.
Right. The thing is, though, I feel mentally stronger, but that's after introspection, right? And I think that's the difference, and that's where the initial point that we came to is like life has trauma, right? So I got fake canceled, right? And that was a very traumatic experience for me, right? It created problems that weren't there before in my mind and fears that weren't there before, right? So that's like, I'm living life. And this is where, words and things can be hurtful. Like what people say about you can be hurtful. Maybe you would have shrugged it off. I'm not like you, right? It got to me. But the thing is, I didn't deal with it. This is what I'm talking about. I didn't deal with it for like a year. I kind of like buried it, thought I was fine. I wanted to be fine. Mm-hmm. And I rushed myself to go back to content creation. And over time, that built up. Over time, that created more responses in me that were negative, right? They created like, so 2 years ago, if I read someone's take on the internet and they're like, SCB, you're an idiot, I didn't care. But as a result of my trauma, I cared more because it was triggering the response from that initial problem, right? Where I was worried that like, this is going to happen again, right? Like if people are hateful, oh my God, it's because they're going to cancel me again and I'm going to lose my job and I'm going to lose the life that I have, right? And obviously I don't want to lose the life that I have.
Of course.
But all of that happened because I didn't deal with it. Now I've gone back and I've dealt with it, right? And I've understood why I felt the way I felt. And that can only come by, not distracting myself, but by understanding myself, right? So that's where I'm coming from. It's like I want other people to not make the mistake I did of wanting to be better, like wanting to be fine more than trying to be fine, if that makes sense. Like just being like, I'm fine rather than working towards being fine, right? Yeah. So like, and by the similar yardstick, right? It's like when we talk about, like someone will be pissed off no matter what I say. Again, it's like, yeah, someone will be pissed off no matter what I say. But again, it's like, I'm not seeking to piss people off. And I wouldn't speak on issues that I didn't have utmost understanding of, right? Like I try not to speak on anything that I haven't at least done some research into. So like, I don't know the effects of long distance relationships. I don't know if you've read studies on long distance relationships. You're kind of going off gut instinct. And so like I think when you like if you had more like, okay, I understand this issue better, and you came out with a take like that, I think that people would be more willing to listen to you. But like you just kind of go at it because of your gut instinct. Like you said, you're just tweeting at the gym or whatever. Mm-hmm. And that's where it's like becomes hateful, right? Because you're kind of like just throwing something out, something you don't really know about, and it's just more damage than like you want to spread more goodness than bad, but in this case you're just spreading more damage than good.
Well, how do you know? Do you have the statistics?
I don't know. Do you know? Is what I'm asking. Do you know?
No, but I'd like to believe that from my personal experience.
No, but that's not the same thing, right? That's not the same thing.
But I think that if I would believe that I'm doing the wrong thing, I would not do it. You understand?
Well, no one would. No one would. But that requires you to stop for a moment and ask if you're really like at least trying to understand better about the situation before you make a take on it.
Absolutely. So that, that's where the positive affirmation coming in from external source. Like you said, I get messages every day. I said, you know what, awkward? I had a long distance relationship. Like, I mean, remember it was like 2 days after I posted a tweet. It was like 3 different people, by the way. I've had a long distance relationship. You're absolutely right. It never worked out. I just felt sad for a year. Didn't leave my house, stopped in my bed. I just, just played video games all day. And at the end of the day, I've helped most people. But if the other direction that you say that I'm harming, all they say, they're calling me names. Well, how? Well, it's not.
Well, this is the crocodile example, but in reverse. Just because you waded through the crocodiles and got away with it, and there was 3 people who came out and were like, "Good job wading through the crocodiles," doesn't change that you waded into a topic you didn't really know about and upset a lot of people.
Yeah, but no one as of yet, by the way. Not a single person, not in my DMs, not on Twitter, not on this, ever, not a single person throughout all of the years that I sit in Overwatch and I say what I have to say, not a single person yet have to message me, "You have ruined my life."
It's not, I mean, it's not about ruining the life, though. Like, it's not about...
Or you made me feel bad. Not even that. That's the thing. That's what I'm saying. That
because they wouldn't because most people wouldn't want to reach out to someone who's upset them like that, right? Like if you don't know someone, do you reach out to everyone who you don't know who has pissed you off? No, you just like you move on from them.
But I think that if I triggered an emotional response enough for me to comment on that post to say that I am wrong and call me names, I think that the emotion of itself is enough to at least. Message me. Like, I think that it takes more time to tweet and type all this hateful stuff instead of like messaging me awkward, like, I disagree with you, whatever.
But just some random guy is not going to reach out to you. And maybe some have, I don't know. But like some random guy is not going to just start DMing you to be like, "Hey, awkward." And if they did, you might feel like they were just being haters, right? You might be like, "Oh, they're just calling me idiots."
Yeah, I mean, like, if somebody has genuine intent, like right here, right now, I answered a lot of the DMs that I have on Discord. I get many of them. If I feel like they're genuine, I'll answer them. I'll answer people's DMs, and I do. Of course, I can't answer everybody, but I try my best. If I see that they're people having hard, like people have genuine questions, because people always ask me like, "How are you so unbothered? How are you so unfazed? You like even about the game, outside of the game, like how are you so confident in your abilities?" Like I struggle mentally. I just not confident. I walk outside, like my anxiety kicks in. Like, why don't you have that? Well, and I try to give them the advice that I can, as much as I can, right? But at the end of the day, like if people are genuine, I'll answer that question. But you're saying, why would people DM that? Like, my question is like, why would they even respond to my tweet? Why would they respond to my tweet? Because I think if you can respond to my tweet and be hateful, I think you can at the very least message me. I think it's just kind of same.
Well, probably to them, that's just their way of reaching to you, right? Rather than DMing you, they just reply to your tweet because they know either way you'll see it. And they want to let you know that you've hurt them.
But that's the action that they chose to do. That's their action. I mean, if I did never comment on a tweet in a hateful way. Why?
But just because you don't do that doesn't mean someone else might not. Like, and it's, again, I agree with you that the hatefulness is bad. Like, I'm not disagreeing that someone just calling you a name is bad. 100%
Absolutely.
Stupid.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people who genuinely just like, this guy has no idea what he's talking about. Mm-hmm. And that's fair to say.
Yeah, sure. But
right?
At the end of the day, but if you go living your life just commenting on every person you disagree with, you're just gonna it's not a very productive day, right? Because there are many people in the world, many people on the internet who's gonna say things you don't like. Well, are you gonna go sit and comment on each and one of them? I think that's not a very meaningful life to live.
No, but obviously the reason you're getting a lot of it is because you said things that are, that's where I come from, like the inflammatory angle, right? It's like people like feel like you're You're trying to piss them off.
Yeah, I get that. I get that. I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
My point is the fact that I changed somebody's life for the better and possibly helped him not do things to himself is the weight is much bigger than a guy who just doesn't like what I say. I don't care about the guy that doesn't like what I say. I know he's gonna forget about it 20 minutes later. Or if he doesn't, you can say he won't. Well, block.
Well, yeah, actually, let's go back to this because there was a point you made about like, oh, let's say you're being flamed in voice chat, and it's like you have two options: either like build a thicker skin or mute them, right? But there's a third option, which is like encourage them to not be a shitty person, right? It's like,
but that's out of control. It's completely out of your control.
It's out of that control. It's out of your control in that specific instance, but it's not out of your control in a wider POV, right? It's like when, for example, I want this for myself is like when people are being racist in voice chat, I don't think that should be acceptable. Like there's, I understand we're human beings and we're going to have disagreements. We're going to flame each other. Like that's never going to go away. We're never not going to have people flame each other. But there are things that are beyond the pale of what to say, right? There are things that cannot be acceptable. Like we cannot allow people to say this. Otherwise, we're just making a really bad society. So you can call people out on those things. You can say, hey, what you're saying is not acceptable. Like, and other people can make that person understand by
if that's all you can do.
Yeah, but that is the third option. I guess that's what people are trying to do with you in some ways, right? They're like, they want you to know that you're creating an atmosphere that is unwelcoming. That's like makes people feel unwelcome, again, basically.
Yeah, sure. But then the things that I speak about are very subjective at the end of the day, right? It's like an opinion. Right. It's subjective. It's not a hateful. If you're being racist, it's a hateful.
Yes.
It's hateful speech, and that's why we say it's not okay. But it's like me saying pasta is better purple, better than green. I disagree with you.
That's an opinion, but then being like Italians are stupid is like that's now we're hateful, right? So it's like
100%. But so I believe what I'm saying is hateful. I feel like it's an opinion, and if you don't like my opinion, you're entitled to your own opinion. It's your prerogative. At the end of the day.
Yes.
Believe what you want to believe.
Yes, but then there's like when you attack who people are, it's different to an opinion, right? Again, it's like when you're like nothing productive can come from long distance relationships, knowing that you already know yourself that there are some people with productive long distance relationships. So you're kind of like attacking people on a level that like, what do you expect someone who's living that truth to feel about you? They're obviously going to be like, this guy is just being hateful because he knows that there are people who have successful long-distance relationships and he's still saying this.
Because listen, when you say, I have to speak in very big generalities, because once you give somebody, like when you say, so as I said, the crocodile, right? With the crocodile example, let's use the crocodile example.
Yeah.
I could say, don't cross that river. There are crocodiles there. You are going to die. Or I can say, right? Yes, it's infested with a crocodile, but there was this one guy who did cross the river safely. Would I say that? No, because I know it's not likely to work.
Well, here, let's just to use your example, let's change the tweet a little bit, right? So instead of saying nothing good can come from long distance relationships, why not just say, I know it has succeeded for some people, but in general, I don't think long distance relationships are productive. That in a simple change is a lot less hateful and a lot less inflammatory.
But let's use the same example on something like drugs. If you sniff some coke one time and it's not very light, something bad might not happen. But then it just basically encourage people to try coke, even though I just said he's fine, can try it one time. It's not that big of a deal to try it one time. But if all of a sudden they try it one time and because of me they do it every single day, well, I could blame myself for leading people down a very, very bad path. I'm not saying things, by the way.
Yeah, but you'd see again when you draw the comparison of taking cocaine to being in a long distance relationship. Do you not see how the reason people get upset when you say something like that is because you're positing that something like a long distance relationship is so clearly bad, the way that we know through years and years of understanding of cocaine that is bad. That's what pisses people off, right? That drawing that parallel in of itself, because you don't know this, right? That's the key part. If you knew that long distance relationships were like taking cocaine,
I know
it's not the same. It's not the same. Because like what you experience is not what other people experience. Or other people
But
have different experiences.
yeah, but I'm sharing my opinion. If they have different experience, all good for them. I'm happy for them, genuinely. Like I am not, I'm not resentful to people in dating, in long distance, online relationship. If it works for them, they should be unbothered of what I say. Just exactly as if somebody would say that I am fat when I am jacked. I would be unbothered. Why is it bothering me?
I'm just trying to explain to you why it is bothering people, right? It's
I
because you're,
understand. I understand. I
yeah, yeah.
understand why it's bothering me. I
Because
understand.
yeah, because you're like, yeah, you're a comparing them to things that are like known to be dangerous when you yourself just have that personal experience opinion versus again objective science. And then yeah, also the dealing in absolutes. So I think like I
But
think
you
for
can
my
see.
part, I've kind of said largely what I want to say, which is that like yeah, I think that this is why maybe you're not received as well as I think you could be, and where I would encourage you to maybe like think twice on those tweets. But like at the end of the day, you're on your own guy and you live by your own principles, and it's not my job or place to force you to be someone else. So like you got to do what you got to do. But that's what I got to say to you.
Yeah, you said what you had to say, and that's all you could have done, right? That's
Yeah,
all you could have done. And I'm gonna say what I said, and that's all I can do, right? At the end of the day, we live our own truth, we live our own lives, and we have to make decisions that will benefit our own lives. And if we benefit our own lives, we benefit the people around us. And we have to be people with principles, because then we would have a very failing society, and very dangerous society as well.
yeah,
Unless, yeah. But at the end of the day, life, I mean, that's why I say there's always theory, there's always life will give you the biggest lessons. And if life is giving you lessons and you don't act accordingly, you don't change accordingly, right? Let's say you are out of shape and people don't like you for it, for example, right? For example, I think that a good way, a bad way would be, okay, I'm out of shit. Let's not change and let's keep trying. Like clearly people don't like me for my size or whatever. What do I do? No, no. Let's just go with what I just gonna keep it that way, and hopefully things will change. Or you can say, well, life just hit me with the hard truth. I think that life is the most truthful of them all. At the end of the day, you cannot dodge. There's objective truth. If somebody hits you in the head, it's objective truth to it. There's no going way around it. If you are lonely, it's objective truth. You are lonely. You might not feel lonely necessarily, but objectively you are lonely. At the end of the day, you're going to feel that. If you are constantly getting picked on or getting bullied, it's basically, we can say, I'm not victim blaming or anything like that, but I think bullying is horrible. But you can only ask yourself, what can I do better? Life is teaching me a lesson, and as you said, life is trauma. It's true. Life is trauma. Life is in a lot of ways bad, and that's how our character is tested, through our bad experiences, how we deal with them. And that's why I always say, you trauma is inevitable, and you having bad feelings is inevitable. It's gonna happen. Deal with them properly, right? Deal with them properly in a way that is going to make you, in the future, when those things happen again, you're going to be unfazed. I used to be bothered when people on the internet said bad things about me, but now I don't, because I constantly mentally challenge myself. Everything that I do in my life, I constantly challenge myself. I picked up boxing not because I like the sport in a crazy way. I picked it because I knew it's going to be mentally challenged. Why would I be afraid of what somebody on the internet says about me when there are people who try to punch me in the face in the ring and they truly try to knock me out? People, like, how are you not unbothered? Because I have real problems in my life. I've seen, I've seen people die around me. I've had people with uh, having really bad emotional experiences, uh, you know, um, trying to harm themselves. I've seen shit. And the only way for you to grow mentally stronger is for you to experience and see shit. And I'm not saying you should voluntarily do that, but at the end of the day, you will have to do that. But it's way better to put yourself in positions that will mentally challenge you to a point where it's not going to break you. So you're going to build some resilience. I believe mental resilience is a very, very, very important thing that each person should do. That's why I say work out, go for it. It doesn't matter what you work at, gym, bouldering, whatever. Go learn some martial arts. It will teach you a lot of discipline. At the end of the day, the most dangerous people are the people that the martial artists, the professionals. They don't go out there and hit people, even though they have the most capability. But the people who actually hit people, the people that don't have emotional control, they don't have this discipline, and every time they're angry, they try to act tough and they try to hit people. but eventually life will humble you. So that's all I have to say on the topic.
Yeah, and I appreciate your perspective, dude. Like, I just think that where we disagree again is like, I agree that life is trauma, life throws shit at you. The difference is that, yeah, all you can do is take it, but also you cannot contribute to it. And I think that like every person should be striving to not contribute to the shit being thrown in people's face. Right? Like, life is hard. We don't need more people to make it harder. And like, that's what I try to live by.
I agree, but we as people, we cannot control what other people are saying. Well, only
We don't.
what
We can't
control is
complete what
ourselves.
people say, but we can change what we say, right? Like what you say. So that's again why I was trying to tell you about like, well, just be aware of how you say things. Is like, well,
but I
because
can
you're
say the
the
same
one.
thing about you. But I can say the same thing objectively.
Yeah, but
about
again,
you.
I've tried to draw the distinctions of like, well, I'm not dealing in absolutes. I'm only wading in when I have like some expertise on the thing, and I'm trying to wade in specific areas that aren't like, you know, this is how you should live your life, right? When I don't know better, like I don't know in that specific situation. When I weighed in, it's because I looked into the situation. So I think like that's my POV, right? It's like, okay, life is shit, but let's not make it shit for other people if I can. So
I agree with that 100%. I'm not. I truly believe that I don't make it for shit for other people. Like, it's your opinion, right? I can say that you are making it shit for other people as well, but that's my opinion, right? But at the end of the day, you don't feel that way. I don't feel that way. So why would we change something that we don't feel that we are? It's like saying your pasta is horrible, but you think your pasta is great. Would you change it?
Well, if my friends were telling me that what I'm doing is fucked up, I would listen to them. That's the thing. Like, if my friends were like, they came together and they were like, I think what you're doing is harmful or destructive, I'd give it a second thought. So like, yeah.
So what that was, I was getting it earlier. My positive feedback significantly outweighs the negative feedback. So if the negative feedback would outweigh the positive feedback, I would 100% change what I do and change the way that I possibly phrase.
But that is what happened this time, isn't it? Like, there was so much negative feedback to what you said.
Sure, but I believe that the positive feedback outweighs the negative feedback. Random people want to, well, people that share their own experiences, right? Instead of saying you are stupid, are more validating to me that what I'm doing is correct. When somebody says, awkward, message me, you're awkward, you're absolutely right. I used to be a crybaby, and now I just took my life together, and I am a little bit more stoic, and I try to act on my
But is that also not just a random guy on the internet, though?
Sure, but his opinion is more validating because he actually shares his own experience. But they don't. The people that are saying what they say, they don't share their own experience. They say that I'm stupid. But even somebody says, "Yeah, bro, like I'm very masculine and I cry." Well, good for you. And well, good. How can I change if you're doing the best that you can do and you say that it works? Why do so? How is it really negative at the end of the day?
Well, but that's what they're sharing. They're sharing with you the negative feedback of that opinion, right? It's like,
but their life is good because they do what they do, right? They just want to say that I'm wrong, and if I'm wrong,
yeah, because what they're saying is, hey, at Awkward, I and many others like me have achieved fulfillment through this thing that you're actively saying is bad, and you're kind of not listening to them, right? You're like kind of ignoring them because you're choosing the examples of the people who DM'd you to affirm your opinion more than the people who went out the internet to say that what you're saying is untrue.
Yeah, but I say that there are things that hold more weight because of the intent and the meaningfulness behind it. So again, it's like I live a very fulfilling life, and I don't agree with what you say. Great. I stop myself from killing myself because of what you say. I think that well, if I didn't say what I say, this person could have possibly killed himself. Understand? That's the way that I approach things. So I think that just a random guy disagreeing with me on the internet doesn't weigh as much as a person who's in a really, really bad mental shape. To me, I would rather save that person instead of a person, right? I'm not that doesn't need to be saved. He's fine. He's fine. But there are people out there who truly struggle, and they need somebody to talk to, and they need somebody to affirm their opinions. And they need somebody that, and those people, well, possibly they have you and they should follow you by all means. They don't like me, they shouldn't follow me, right? That's how it works. Don't follow me. Follow SVB if you are agreeing if you agree and you lead and you help people lead a better life. Yeah, that's what the follow is for. So you can see the opinions that make your life better. I follow people that make my life better. I don't follow people that make my life worse. Just how I choose my friends. I don't choose friends that make my life worse. I choose friends that make my life better. How I choose my partners, romantic partners. Do I always make the best choices? Sure, but I learn from them, right?
Sure. I mean, yeah. I mean, I think I think we've kind of gone in circles on this issue. Like as I said, I totally respect that you kind of want to help people and you're trying to like reach out to people, in a way that you think will be most beneficial. Yeah. All I had to say on that note was just like I said. I already said what I was gonna say. Try to be less less upsetting if you can. But if
Sure.
that's a subjective line. Everybody draws that for themselves, right? Like you said, what I think is not offensive, someone will think is offensive. What you think is not offensive, someone will think is offensive. So yeah, that's all I had to say. As your friend, I think on par, what the way you say is more upsetting than it needs to be.
Mm-hmm.
But you've got to come to your own conclusion about whether you agree with that sentiment or not.
Yeah.
So
I get what you're saying. I respect. Obviously, I'm gonna say at the beginning. I respect your opinion. I don't hate you for your opinion. I never gonna like you less because of your opinion. I think it's important for us to have different opinions because that's how we grow as people. And it's been always been a pleasure talking to you. I think it's been quite interesting. I would have loved to talk more about the anime subject. That was the original point because.
oh
But,
yeah.
yeah, but I think that we kind of it's gonna circle back to the original topic and just kind of pointless at this point. But I truly liked the topic, the anime thing that you brought up, and I wrote down to you in private what I think
Yeah,
about
yeah,
that.
yeah. Yeah, I had thoughts on that too, but we've been going for ages, and like you said, it'll come back to the same circle. So I think we've made some points. Hopefully, like we've kind of I've definitely got a lot more insight into where you're coming from and sort of how you approach things, which I think is helpful. And we've both kind of exchanged our feelings, which is the best that anyone can and should do. We kind of talked it out. I
Yeah.
can't always agree with my friends, but that's okay. Like that's fine. If I feel like my friends were crossing a line, then I would step in. But I feel like you're just your sort of bait tweeting is a little bit is harmless in the grand scheme of things. I wish
Yeah.
you'd do it differently, but you're still my friend and I still respect you, regardless. So
I appreciate it likewise.
yeah, thanks for joining me, man. I appreciate you coming here and being kind of candid and yeah, just giving me your time and being honest and upfront with me, and yeah, just being willing to do this shows a great sort of maturity. So I appreciate that a lot, dude.
Yeah, thank you for having me. You have a great night.
Yeah,
And
you too,
everybody else,
man.
the audience.
All right,
Bye
thanks,
bye.
man. Peace out.